Good evening, everyone. This is the public forum for the tropical storm Isaias. Your line has been muted upon entry. Mr. Hubbard, are you ready to go on record?
I am ready.
Okay, welcome to the public forum for tropical storm Isaias. The forum is being held before Commissioner Diane Berman and Rory, the special counsel for the ratepayer protections. Please note that the forum is being live streamed on the department's YouTube channel. I will now turn the forum over to Mr. Landsman. Mr. Landsman.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this forum regarding potential damages and harm suffered by ratepayers, if any, as a result of PSEG Long Island's performance in response to tropical storm Isaias. I'm Rory Landsman, the statewide special counsel for ratepayer protection, and I will be conducting this forum. On the afternoon of August 4th, 2020, Isaias struck New York, bringing strong winds and heavy rain that particularly impacted the Mid-Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island regions. Isaias caused extensive damage to electric distribution infrastructure that in turn led to lengthy outages for a substantial number of New York utility customers. Peak outages in New York State due to Isaias reached approximately 1 million customers, and roughly 1.5 million New York customers experienced power outages during this event. On August 5th, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo directed the Department of Public Service to investigate the electric service provider's performance in response to Isaias, including of Central Hudson, Con Edison, Orange and Rockland Utilities, and PSEG Long Island. As a result of that investigation, the Public Service Commission issued an order directing Central Hudson, Con Edison, and O&R to show cause why they should not be penalized and sanctioned for allegedly violating various obligations to ratepayers, including, among other things, allegedly failing to properly track Isaias and secure adequate staffing to promptly restore power, properly communicating with and receiving complaints from the public, and properly ensuring the safety of life support equipment customers. Separately, the department urged the Long Island Power Authority to similarly take appropriate action in connection with PSEG Long Island's alleged failures to properly prepare for and respond to Isaias. And last month, LIPA filed a $70 million lawsuit doing just that. Accordingly, we see comments on the following questions. How were you affected by the outages, including, but not limited to, concrete and measurable economic and material impacts, and physical, emotional, and social impacts? Did you receive timely, accurate, and adequate information from your utility company about what was happening before, during, and after the service outages? Did you attempt to contact your utility for information or assistance immediately before, during, or after the outages? And did you get the response that you were requesting? Comments at this forum will be part of the official record of the Commission and may be utilized by the special counsel as a part of direct testimony admitted into the record in the above referenced proceedings. Before we begin to hear from the public, we have been joined by Commissioner Diane Berman, and I'd like to invite her to say a few words if she chooses. Commissioner Berman?
Thank you so much, Special Counsel Landsman. As Special Counsel said, my name is Diane Berman. I've been a commissioner since 2013. It's really important for me to attend as many public hearings and public forums as I can. I have attended all of the other public forums as it relates to this tropical storm that Special Counsel Landsman has been putting on. My role today is really to be a listener, to listen carefully to everything that everyone says, and to report back to my fellow commissioners what I hear. I really encourage folks to feel free to respectfully share their thoughts and their comments. Just a personal note, while I no longer live on Long Island, I grew up on Long Island and still have family there, so I am interested in this. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Turning it back now to Special Counsel.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And with that, I would like to get started by calling our first person to speak at the forum, and that is Tom Falcone, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Long Island Power Authority. We're asking everyone to, if possible, limit your comments to approximately 5 minutes, although if you really need a little more time, we can be flexible. Before, Tom, before you begin, Erin and court reporter, are we ready to go?
All set.
Great. Okay, Tom, you're up.
Great. Thank you so much, Rory. My name is Tom Falcone. I'm LIPA's Chief Executive Officer. I certainly want to thank Special Counsel Landsman and his colleagues for their hard work over the past few months. I appreciate their work on behalf of LIPA's customers. As you know, LIPA is a not-for-profit public power utility. We're governed by a 9-member board of trustees. Those are volunteers who live and work on Long Island. They're appointed by the governor, the Senate Majority Leader, and the Speaker of the Assembly. LIPA owns the electric grid, but since 1998 has contracted out nearly all day-to-day operations to neighboring utilities. At first, Keyspan and then National Grid provided these services, and then starting in 2014, PSEG Long Island became LIPA's service provider. On August 4th, Tropical Storm Isaias landed on Long Island with rain and wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour, and that resulting damage caused more than 645,000 customer outages. Starting on the afternoon of the storm, PSEG Long Island's telephone infrastructure became overloaded. Nearly 1 million customer calls received busy signals while trying to report an outage. PSEG's outage map, their telephone app, and their text message service also failed, rejecting more than 300,000 text messages from customers. In addition, PSEG Long Island's outage management system failed. This is the system that's used to dispatch trucks, estimate restoration times, and provide information to customers. In short, all of PSEG Long Island's critical IT and communication systems failed. Furthermore, the information PSEG was able to communicate to customers was inaccurate. Initial restoration times that were 24 to 48 hours became as long as 8 days. Since Isaias hit, I've had the opportunity to speak with many stakeholders across Long Island. It's common to hear from a customer that received a dozen or more estimates of when their power would be restored, each wrong, or a customer that called dozens of times to report a hazard but couldn't get through. Elected officials have expressed their frustration, and they're on the front lines of seeking feedback and making recommendations to DPS, to LIPA, and others on how to make things better. For example, Senator Jim Gorin recently shared with me a community survey he conducted with his constituents. Close to 60% of those customers were unable to contact PSEG about their outage, 52% were out of power for more than 5 days, and 67% were restored after PSEG claimed they would be. It became apparent to LIPA that PSEG's storm restoration was failing on the afternoon the storm hit. LIPA immediately launched an independent investigation of the root causes of these failures. The Department of Public Service and the Department of Financial Service also launched a separate investigation. And LIPA has one conclusion from these investigations. It's that PSEG Long Island's management failed during the storm. The failures were not IT or vendor failures. They weren't Verizon failures. They were management failures. Every failure that occurred during this storm could have been prevented by competent management. I want to share with you an internal email from a PSEG employee from mid-July, just 3 weeks before the storm. The employee stated to his boss that the outage management system, the key system that failed during the storm, was, quote, not even managing on a day-to-day basis, and we are definitely not prepared for a weather event. That was 3 weeks before the storm. And yet PSEG management barely reacted, and they didn't tell LIPA. And in fact, we had to read their emails to find out the truth even after the storm. As late as September 4th, a month after the storm, PSEG even wrote LIPA and DPS a letter saying the IT and telephone systems that failed during the storm were fixed. However, they do not work to this day. Unfortunately, we've seen other prominent examples of corporate managements that are less than truthful. There was the Volkswagen Dieselgate or Boeing's 737 MAX. A corporate culture that is less than honest hurts people, and it hurts our customers. And it hurts the 2,500 proud PSEG Long Island employees that put their heart and soul into restoring service for their neighbors during that storm. These experiences are unacceptable to me, they're unacceptable to our board, and they're unacceptable to our customers. LIPA has already ordered PSEG to implement nearly 100 reforms. The board, along with the Department of Public Service, has also asked LIPA to either terminate or to renegotiate its contract with PSEG and to provide a management structure and incentives that are better aligned with our Long Island customers. The future of our Long Island utility remains with the LIPA board, our customers in the state of New York, who will decide on this fundamental structure and governance of a reorganized LIPA. LIPA will hold public forums to engage customers and stakeholders through each step of the process. We will listen to the feedback presented by customers today. And we're committed to transparency, we're committed to our customers, and we are committed to ensuring honest and capable management of the Long Island utility. If anyone would like more information about our activities, please visit our Isaias website at lipower.org. I would just like to conclude by very much thanking the department, Rory, and also Commissioner Berman for being here today.
Tom, thank you very much. We appreciate your kicking us off this afternoon. Next, we're going to hear from Steve Moniz, who's the Chief Facilities Officer at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. Mr. Moniz.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just give me 1 sec to get this back up on the screen. So my name is Stephen Moniz. I'm the Vice President, Chief Facilities Officer at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory here in Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island, New York. We're about 750,000 square foot facility that does cancer research. Currently, we're doing some COVID research, a lot of neuroscience, artificial intelligence research. We have about 1,100, 1,200 employees here. And I'm glad that, with this forum is taking place, and I thank you for inviting me. As you all know, the storm affected many on Long Island. It really did impact us here quite a bit. We were without power for 5 days at one of our largest laboratories, which put millions and millions of federally funded research at risk. Our chiller plants here were not on emergency power, just as they were not designed, and we are currently looking to invest in that avenue. The reason why I'm testifying is that over the 5 days of not having power to our largest laboratory, I made phone calls every day, numerous times a day, emailing numerous people at PSEG, and I did not really get a response. I really needed the Department of Public Service to step in. They did step in. They assisted, and we were finally able to get power on once I was able to get in contact with a manager of PSEG. It was very difficult not having any communication. No communication is very hard to communicate to the researchers, to the president of this laboratory. What risks do we have? We were told that power would be restored, usually 8 hours, every 8 hours, every 8 hours for 5 days. That failure of being able to deliver the expectation that was set did not allow us to make the necessary decisions to pull in temporary power. If we knew on day 1 or day 2 that power would not be restored for 5 or 6 days, we would have gone out and rented emergency generator equipment and rolled it in. That cost is very large to us. We are a federally funded institution. Those funds are not budgeted for. So the crux of the issue, believe it or not, was the laboratory building. Although we were told that we were on their power map and we are a critical facility, that main power feed coming into the campus was not identified on any power map. So anytime PSEG crews came to the campus, they did not seek anyone out here. They did not look for security. They did not come to the Richards building where the facilities office is. I was here pretty much 20 hours a day for 5 days. And they did not seek anyone out. They would show up, see that some power was on, and leave. They would never do the investigation to find out where the laboratory that did not have power, why it did not have power, and how to restore that power. Once we had that conversation, 5 days later, power was restored 2 hours later. And a month and a half after this whole event happened, I finally did have a call with certain leadership of PSEG, and they even admitted that that power feed, and it is a 13,200 volt power feed coming into the campus, was not on their power map. It is now on the power map, and I'm sure we would not have this problem again should it ever happen again in the future. But it just shows that there was a failure to plan, a failure to communicate, and I'm hoping that you take this testimony, and if you need or have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your taking time from your busy schedule and the important work that you do to join us this afternoon and tell us about your experience. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from the mayor of Glen Cove, Tim Tenke. Mayor Tenke, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Special Counsel, Mr. Lantzman, and I want to thank also Commissioner Berman for having this hearing. As you know, I'm the mayor of the city of Glen Cove, which has approximately 30,000 residents. And on August 4th, when Isaias came through here, it knocked out power for, I would say, between 70 and 80% of our city. It wasn't until about the 6th, August 6th, where my office started receiving phone calls from its residents indicating that they were not having any success in getting through to PSEG to find out when power would be restored. It was that day on the 6th, I went out and tried to personally find a supervisor that was in the area. It wasn't until Saturday when I ran into Pete Boykovich, a employee, a supervisor for PSEG, an old school type of a guy. He used to work for Lilco, and it was through him that I was able to show him through the phone calls that I was receiving from our residents that there were certain areas that were without power for several days. And to his credit, Mr. Boykovich stayed in Glen Cove and did not leave until the power was restored to all areas. However, what I was finding out was there were a lot of complaints that were coming from the residents, not just because they couldn't get through to PSEG, but the information that they were receiving was incorrect. They were being told that the power was back on in their houses when they were standing in them, saying that they were there and there was no power. It was also very difficult to get certain times. They said that certain things would be back on this date, and yet it wasn't for several days later before they were able to restore power in these areas. Now we had a lot of trees down, and we were like a lot of the surrounding communities that suffered a lot of damage from the storm. However, the problem was with the communications and with their ability to either, if they had a way to get on through the computer system, was that they were not being able to get any type of information regarding their homes or their businesses to be restored. And a lot of people lost a lot of goods, especially some of our restaurants and such. But I have to say, in defense of PSEG, since that time, their responsiveness has changed, and I think it's only fair that I do respond to that. Is right from the very top, we lost power on Christmas, not to the extent that we lost on Isaias on August 4th, but they were very responsive, gave us times, and I really believe that they were trying to make an effort to make up for what their failures were in August, and the failures were significant in August. But I think that they are taking that very seriously, and Dan Eichhorn personally had called me. And we spoke on Christmas Day, and yes, the days and the times that he said the power would be restored were restored. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them for what happened in August. That was a complete failure of the system, and I think they realized that. But since that time, they have made some improvements that I've noticed. Only I can say is thank God for Pete Boykovich, who was there, and his crew that went through, because it was a very hot summer and there were a lot of people that were really hurting during that time. People with medical issues, people with young children, people with elderly with issues. It was in the middle of COVID. This is a lot of problems that I was hearing over the phone, but that one crew really helped restore the power and my faith in the power company at that time. But again, I know I hear stories from all the communities surrounding Glen Cove that they were going through similar issues at the time. But I appreciate the opportunity to come here and indicate what we were going through at that time. It was very tough, and there were a lot of angry people, and rightly so at that time. But I'm hoping that the lessons learned from Isaias will translate into future improvements, which I've already seen going forward. So having the ability to come here and voice what our issues were is very much appreciated, and I thank you, Special Counsel Landsman and Commissioner Berman, for giving me the opportunity to come on here and say so. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. And one thing that we've heard in all of these forums is appreciation for the work done by the folks on the ground, whether it's PSEG or Con Ed or ONR or Central Hudson. There's been nothing but admiration and appreciation for the workers who showed up under difficult circumstances and worked a tremendous number of hours to try to restore power. And we've also, of course, heard from some of them in terms of their frustrations, or I've heard from some of them in terms of their frustrations of being sent to a place ready to do the job and not being able to because the information wasn't current. But let me ask you a question I ask all the mayors and town supervisors and others with frontline responsibility for providing services. Could you tell us how, if at all, some of the shortcomings that you identified impacted your ability as mayor to provide the services and run the operations of, in your case, the city of Glen Cove during this time?
Well, certainly. I mean, our ability to communicate was one of the toughest ones, and I don't know if it's typical in other municipalities, but Glen Cove the city hall becomes the communication center of the town, and the residents rely on getting information. And when they were so frustrated, they were taking it out on us, and we're trying to indicate to our residents that help is on the way, and that they have to be patient. But after the 5th or 6th day of this, it became difficult. I mean, we have our own fire department, our own police department, our own EMS, who all suffered through this because one is there was a very difficult way of getting notified that there were emergencies going on. But we were able to, because they were able to at least reach City Hall, and we became basically the center of communications for our city during that time. If we had some power put back on earlier, the widespread areas that were affected, I think it would have been a lot easier for us to control what was going on. But at times it seemed like it was almost on the point of not being in control. But we managed, because we had a lot of good people in City Hall that were willing to give their time and to make sure that the people in our city were being heard and having their service restored as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your work as mayor and making time for us this afternoon to tell us what your experience was. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from State Senator Todd Kaminsky. Todd, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome. You're up.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity, Special Counsel Landsman and Commissioner Berman, to talk about the experience that my constituents had to endure during Tropical Storm Isaias. I think that although your task in this hearing might be narrow in terms of figuring out what happened and make recommendations going forward. I just also think your general charge, in light of your general charge, what concerns me most is that right now we still don't have a function. You ask right now, is the storm management system ready to handle a big winter storm, which could happen next week? The answer is no. And there'd be some, crazy hodgepodge system where they basically say, don't call us. PSEG will call you back, let you know if they have any information, but there's no way to handle wide-scale outages, and that's very troubling that we're in the 21st century in the Empire State. Some of the highest rates in the country, ratepayers are paying over to PSEG, and we don't have a working system right now, and that's troubling and it's dangerous, frankly. So I just think that's something we need to keep in mind. Also, stepping back, this was not a Category 4 hurricane. This was not Sandy. This was a tropical storm. And when this system was tested by a tropical storm, as serious as its winds were, it could have been much worse, and it completely failed, even in light of it not being some of the toughest storms we'll see here in the Northeast. So that's also troubling. What frustrated my constituents, of course, was unreliable information. A map system on the computer that didn't provide any helpful information, incorrect estimates. It was all extremely frustrating. But some ratepayers were more vulnerable than others, and I think we really need to re-examine our entire system in terms of how it treats vulnerable individuals, such as individuals who might have a disability, have caretakers involved in overseeing them, elderly and frail. There's no real, if you ask the power companies and I push them, they're like, yeah, it's our job to warn them of a storm, and then that's really it. I mean, it doesn't really do much good to tell someone, hey, a big storm is coming, get ready. They're really unable to take care of themselves. The power goes out, and then the power company could check the box and say, we did what we were supposed to do. That's not how we as a society are supposed to be treating the most vulnerable among us. And if you ask the county executives from Suffolk and Nassau, who really performed admirably in the storm, they had to send out different police officers, different county officials to check on some of these folks. And they'll also tell you that the lists were not really commensurate with the scope of the problem. Either, some of the people weren't there who were on the list, and many other people who should have been on the list weren't on the list. So I think examining what happens to our most vulnerable residents in some of these outages is really important, and we'll have failed as a society if we can't make sure that we're taking care of those who need our help the most. In terms of the outage management system, again, reliable information is very helpful for people, but I also don't want to mask the fact that these outages occurred for a very long time, despite it not being a very serious storm. And yes, there were some real trees that were down and some real damage done, but I also think it's worth looking into hardening the system, whether there was enough backup and having enough support there in terms of the manpower and trucks, and whether they were dispersed correctly. Obviously, in light of the outage management system not working, there are all types of stories we know to be true where people came to houses that had perfectly fine power and the workmen and women didn't need to be there. And other instances where right around the block they were needed and said, well, no one told me that I had to go to your house, so I'm sorry, ma'am. I see you have no power in your house and I'm on your block and you and I are talking, but I can't help you. There's got to be a better way to deal with that. And on the corporate management side, it's very frustrating to me to know that after years and years of paying tens of millions of dollars of bonuses, we can't get accurate, transparent information about that. I've asked PSEG for their financial compensation records of their executives. They've denied that information. Right now, it is a law that it be in any rate filing. When I've asked PSEG about that, they've told me that that has to be redacted in any public form. So we're trying to get legislation to fix that so the public can know exactly where their rates are going. Special Counsel Lansman, when we were trying to get the reimbursements for spoilage, I mean, it was really fought at every turn. Hardcore documentation that people didn't have, only up to a certain limit. And that had to come out of ratepayer funds, not management bonuses. So I think, and the governor has taken this on very seriously, and we're very grateful for that. Obviously, there need to be more repercussions, and the system needs to be changed from the inside out. But this storm really laid bare a lot of the problems that people have, and it fed into a deeper cynicism that, the utilities are just out to gouge people and don't care for them. I mean, this is literally true story. When you couldn't get in touch with the power company, PSEG, about when their lights would come back on, they still got an automated telephone call from PSEG telling them their bill was due. That didn't fail. So people are really frustrated. They pay extremely high rate. To have lived through this was just really stuck in their craw, and we got to do better. So we're prepared in the legislature to roll up our sleeves and work with you to do that. And Lord knows there's work to be done, and to strengthen LIPA in that process as well, so that we could all work together toward a better, more functioning, and more ratepayer friendly system.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I know that you've spent a lot of time working on these issues. You and I have had conversations, and definitely appreciate you making time for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to invite the supervisor of the town of Hempstead, Don Clavin. He said that he might not be able to make it. So Supervisor Clavin, if you're on the call, let us know. Otherwise, we know that you're going to submit. You said you'd submit written testimony. Is Supervisor Clavin on the call? By the way, if you're dialing in and I call your name, that is, if you're on the form via your phone, not via the computer app, you have to hit *3. That will raise your hand, and then the staff will know that your hand is raised, and we should bring you into the call. So one last shout out for the supervisor for the town of Hempstead, Mr. Clavin. All right, I think that he is going to be submitting testimony, written testimony, after the fact. If at some point he comes on, if there's staff on for him, and he wants to join later on, let us know. Raise your hand, and we will accommodate him. So next, we are going to go to State Senator Anna Kaplan. Anna, you there? Senator Kaplan, are you there? If you're on calling by phone, dialing in, you need to hit *3.
Good afternoon, Special Counsel Landsman. I'm on. I want to first start by thanking you and also Commissioner Berman for holding this hearing. And my name is Anna Kaplan. I'm the senator from the 7th Senate District, which includes northwest portion of Nassau County and North Shore of Long Island. On the afternoon of August 4th, families across my district found themselves plunged into darkness and chaos. At first, due to loss of electricity, but for days and even weeks to follow due to the unimaginable failure of PSEG Long Island in regard to responding to the crisis. The failure of PSEG Long Island outage management system left people desperate for help and desperate for answers, neither of which PSEG Long Island was able to provide in their time of need. And so many of my residents reached out to my office for help, turning my office into a de facto call center for PSEG Long Island. Here are some of the raw numbers of what that looked like. We helped 731 individuals get their lights turned back on after they were unable to reach anyone at PSEG Long Island or receive correct information about service restoration. 33 of these individuals were put at risk of losing their lives due to a medical emergency or loss of power to life-sustaining medical equipment. 120 of those individuals had a serious medical condition or were frail elderly, meaning that their health and their lives were at risk due to the loss of power and failed communication by PSEG Long Island. 33 of these individuals were put at risk of losing their lives due to a medical emergency or loss of medical equipment. And about 66 of these individuals had live wires down on their property, presenting an imminent threat of harm or death. But these numbers don't convey the full impact of the nightmare created by PSEG Long Island's failure and staggering cost. For instance, a member of my staff was out of power for nearly 2 weeks forcing him to have to live out of a hotel room at a cost of $2,000. I spoke to terrified parents of special needs children who couldn't breathe because their children's nebulizers had no power. I spoke to caregivers whose loved ones couldn't use their life alert in an emergency, so they were forced to stay by their bedside in the dark just to make sure they were okay. I spoke to countless people who had lost their jobs due to the pandemic and were forced to throw away groceries and medication that they could scarcely afford to replace. These are just a few examples, but I could literally tell you hundreds of stories of pain and extreme hardship that happened as a result of PSEG Long Island's failing. To have this happen on top of the global pandemic that already put families on the brink of unimaginable stress is inexcusable. PSEG Long Island needs to be held accountable, and I appreciate the efforts of DPS to do so. And I'm available should you require any additional information. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And, you know, I know very well that during a crisis, whether it's a power outage or during the pandemic, people call their local elected officials when they need assistance. And so it's not surprising to me that you got the calls that you did, as varied as they are. You know, every problem under the sun, if people know who their local elected official is, they're going to give them a call. Let me ask you, I know that your district covers many towns and villages and jurisdictions of government. Could you just tell us what your interaction was with those local elected officials who have those frontline responsibilities for providing direct services and the challenges that you saw them have?
We were all working together trying to find some relief for our resident, Supervisor Bosworth from town of North Hempstead. And also we were on calls with supervisor of town of Oyster Bay and Hempstead. My district does have a portion of town of Hempstead and a portion of Oyster Bay, but primarily it's town of North Hempstead.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your making time and continue the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have some bills, that legislation that we have offered. We'll be more than happy to share those with you going forward, trying to find some resolutions for some of the issues that did come up in this crisis.
Well, please do, because, you know, the governor has been very clear that his response, the response to these alleged failures has to be serious, but also comprehensive. And I'm sure you know the governor put out utility reform legislation that is complement to the legal proceedings that the department has instituted and also the legal proceedings that LIPA has instituted. So please do share that with us.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from Daniel Lasquadro from the Brookhaven town of Brookhaven Highway Department. Mr. Lasquardo, you with us? If you are calling in, folks, please note you need to hit *3 to raise your hand.
Yeah.
So, Erin, do we see Mr. Lasquardo? All right. If you see his name pop up after I go on to the next person, you know, please let me know and we'll give him a call again. Let me also let people know, I guess, the next 3 speakers or so folks can get ready, or their staffs can get ready. So we have, I'm going to call Ed Romaine next. After him is Senator Gorin, Senator Brooks, and Assembly Member Judy Griffin. But right now, we're calling up Ed Romaine. Mr. Romaine, are you there? Okay. All right, Erin, if you see Mr. Romaine, the name pop up later, please let me know and we will come back to him. All right, so next up.
There's Mr. Romaine is on the line.
There you go.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Lansman. Thank you. Commissioner Berman, thank you again. I'm supervisor of the town of Brookhaven. Geographically, the town of Brookhaven is the largest town in the state of New York. Population-wise, it's the second largest with 500,000 people. We were hit pretty hard with the storm, as most of Long Island was, and we had outages throughout the town. The difficulty was in communicating. We had so many, the town runs a call center. Our call center for the next couple of days were overwhelmed because people could not get through to PSEG to let them know what was going on. Then when they did get through, they got estimates of restoration that proved to be false. And that was unfortunate. The workmen that I saw out there working in the street, working on the poles, they were a dedicated crew of people. So first of all, let me say to the workmen that showed up, that worked very, very hard, but that was lacking. We simply did not have the direction that we needed, not only from PSEG, but from LIPA. And I want to go on because LIPA was set up with their mission was to enable with a clean, reliable, and affordable electric service to the customers of Long Island and Lockaways. Their job was oversight over PSEG. And I don't think that job was done. And I know we've talked a lot about the shortcomings of PSEG, and I definitely could go on and on about that. But I was looking at the LIPA website, and they said PSEG, and I quote, have been awarded the highest designation for reliability by the American Public Power Association. This is up from their website. They earned this, they say, by spending $730 million of ratepayer funds on storm hardening programs and investing in the better tools to communicate with customers about their outages, including text messages, emails, and phone instructions, end quote. That's from LIPA. What were they doing? How come they didn't spot these deficiencies? Why were we left for a storm to spot these deficiencies? So I heard Tom Falcone come on here, and I'm thinking, really, Tom? Really? It's easy because it's so self-evident that the whole system failed. But where was LIPA's oversight of PSEG? All I know is that the payroll of LIPA has increased by 18% over the last 6 years, while their employees have decreased by 37%. We had people with medical conditions that were calling us, can you get my power on? My medical equipment failed, I need it. We had people calling about live wires. We had people saying, what do I do with my food? When can I get restored? So I'm looking at this, and this is a combo situation. I know people are throwing a lot of rocks at PSEG, and rightfully so. But what about the oversight, the people that were paid to exercise oversight over LIPA, over PSEG? What about LIPA? So I have concerns about that. I have concerns about the system of public power. I think there needs to be a total revamping of the utility, and I'm talking about LIPA and PSEG. I have always felt that we would have been better served with a truly municipal utility, better served with people that came from Long Island. Now, all the LIPA board members are dedicated people, and I congratulate them for the job they're doing. But I've got to say, the employees of LIPA did not exercise the oversight over PSEG that they should have. I'm saying this because I don't want to see this happen again. We had so many trees down, so much power out, so many people suffering. This town was overwhelmed by the calls to our call center, where we have, I think that we have to at least, and I'm prepared as a municipal leader to say, I'm willing to take on an additional responsibility and work with LIPA, PSEG, whoever they restructure. To work with municipalities, we all have call centers so that we can be helpful in terms of emergency. We could not be helpful because we couldn't get accurate times of restoration of service. We couldn't be helpful because we couldn't get responses about live wires or medical conditions that were created by the loss of power. So I'd like to see there's some way that the state invests in their localities, their local governments, their towns, their villages, their counties, to play a role to be more helpful during emergencies. And I'll leave it at that. I thank the PSEG. I thank Public Service Commission for what they're doing and for having this hearing.
Thank you very much, and certainly your experience and you know what you had to do as the supervisor for town of Brookhaven really is important to us. Could you? I just want to follow up on a couple of things that you said. You talked about, I think, people calling with life support issues, people calling with down wires. What do you, as the town supervisor with I keep referring to frontline operational responsibility. You've got town agencies that work for you, resources. What are the challenges that are imposed on you and the resources available to you when you get those calls and you have to respond to those emergencies?
Well, fortunately, we have a staff. We have public safety officers. We have other people, building inspectors, a whole host of different people that work for the town. But in an emergency, we forget titles, we forget job descriptions. We're out there, we forget assists. We send people out, we send out people in the emergencies. Our highway superintendent will tell you, particularly for down trees and down wires. Working with LIPA crews, working with PSEG crews is crucial. These crews need to be embedded with our highway department because they can't restore power if there are trees down that are sitting on the power. Our highway department can work closely with them to get this done. I didn't see enough of that. I saw some of that, and I have to tell you, the workers were absolutely fabulous and jumped in, but I didn't see it from management perspective. The other thing is, I think a lot of people on Long Island were caught by the storm. Let's be honest. Look at the advertising budget. Look at the advertising budget that PSEG said, how they were so ready for the next storm, how they were hardening the things. Look at the information that LIPA itself put out about how the system had been hardened, and they have spent $730 million hardening. You think that created a false impression? You think that these people expected a storm to be as damaging as this? And this wasn't a stage 1 hurricane or stage 2. It was a tropical storm. They were led down by the false advertising that everything was okay. And then the storm hit and it wasn't. All caught by surprise. No planning ahead. And again, some of that responsibility has to be put at LIPA's doorstep for their failure of oversight.
I'm sure you know, at the same time that LIPA is having its proceeding and litigation against PSEG for PSEG's alleged shortcomings, LIPA itself is going through a process of examining what it thinks should be the best model for providing reliable and safe and affordable electric services for Long Island. And I think that they've set a target for March for their board to evaluate whether or not they should remain with PSEG under some kind of newly negotiated operating agreement, or perhaps become a direct provider themselves to municipalize, so to speak. So I know you don't need me to tell you, but that's certainly a process that you should consider weighing in on, because it's obviously something you've given a lot of thought to.
Definitely will weigh in that. It affects so many of our constituents. As I said, we're the largest town geographically in the state and the second largest by population, with 500,000 people. So this storm had a huge effect. And I have to tell you, I am prepared as a local government leader, as I'm sure my other supervisors village mayors or county executives are prepared to take on a role in an emergency and work to train for that emergency with the utility in place. So we don't have a disaster. I'm looking at this now. I'm saying, suppose we got a serious ice storm. We have a lot of problems, and we had trees and power down and roads impassable. I'm very concerned about, we're very vulnerable. And we were told the last time we were vulnerable, before the storm came, how much work had been done to strengthen this system. Really? We were told how much has been invested and how much better the system was. Really? Unfortunately, events proved that not to be true. So we've been told a lot of things as a general public and as elected officials in the past that proved not to be true.
All right, Supervisor Romaine, thank you very much. Really appreciate your taking time to share your experiences with us. I'm just going to go back and see if, well, is Mr. Lasquardo also going to speak, or you've got Brookhaven covered? All right, let him go. Is Mr. Lasquardo there? All right, if not, we're going to go on to State Senator James Garn. Senator Garn, if you are you with us? State Senator James Garn, are you with us?
I believe maybe he's on the phone. If he is, can he raise
if you're
his
on the
hand?
phone, Senator, you want to hit *3 so we can see that your hand is raised, and we can bring you in. All right. In the meantime, let's move on. I'm pretty sure that I saw Assemblywoman Judy Griffin logged in. Assemblywoman Griffin, are you with us?
Oh, yes.
Assemblywoman?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
We can see you. You're in.
Terrific. Thank you, Special Counsel Lantzman and Commissioner Berman. In August 2020, PSEG, as everyone knows, failed to provide adequate service and communication to ratepayers in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Sandy. Now that it's been a few months since then, there certainly should be proactive measures in place by PSEG that will combat future outages. Yet PSEG seems still to be unprepared. And luckily for us, have not experienced any major winter storms yet. But what if we do? We've had a lot of months that have passed, and I just don't see enough in place. Enough steps need to be taken in regard to enhancing communication. Like so many elected representatives mentioned here, my office took countless calls and provided help to so many PSEG customers. My office, 24/7, people were calling in. We were trying to get workers to where they were and help for them. And the worst part was the lack of communication, because if someone knows, okay, a worker's going to be there in a certain amount of hours, possibly that night, the next day, but to get no information is extremely difficult. And that's why they were turning to us. And like others have said here, it really is essential to care for elderly, people with disabilities, people with who are extremely ill. And those people should be a priority, and there should be a streamlined system to really take care of those people and work on making sure that they're okay. Because like when no one is looking out, they don't all have families living nearby, and it's very, very scary for those people. As I already said, I'm extremely concerned with the next storm, because I just have not seen any proactive steps that have been taken, anything in place to say, here's some things we learned, this is what we're going to do now. So I'd like to, one, of course, thank the workers, because there was a great many IBW workers, great many workers who worked day and night to really get our power, restore power across Long Island. And without them, we really would be in trouble. So I really appreciate their great efforts. But I feel like where is LIPA in this? What is their role? And what are they doing to guarantee better, much better service and much better communication next time? So they really have to think about the steps they're willing to take. And of course, in the New York State Legislature, we have legislation that we want to pass so we can deal with some of these issues. But I'm always here to help wherever I can, but we'd really like to see drastic improvement here because our constituents and ratepayers deserve it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you
welcome.
for joining us this afternoon. Let me ask everybody, if I'm not calling your name, please don't hit *3 and raise your hand because we have an order. If you've registered, we have your name on the list, and we will get to you. I promise. But if I have called your name, and it's your turn, and you have dialed in, please do hit *3. Otherwise, please lower your hand. With that said, if I'm not mistaken, we have Senator Gorin, and we're able to bring him into the call. Is that correct?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we can
Okay, yeah, we had some technical difficulty. I could hear you, but we couldn't figure out whatever. But thank you so much, Landsman, for doing this, and Commissioner Berman. The total failure during this tropical storm by both PSEG and, yes, as Supervisor Romaine pointed out, LIPA as well, is something that it just can never happen again. And also just, a big thank you to the line workers, but they were not the problem. They were as frustrated, I believe, as my constituents were, and all the residents of Long Island who could not get any help when they desperately needed it. It was mentioned by Mr. Falcone that my office did a survey, and we got over 3,200 responses. So I see we have until January 25th to submit information. So I will submit that to the Department of Public Service for whatever value you may see in it, but it does have a lot of direct information. My office became a call center as well for, round the clock. And Mr. Berman, as you pointed out, what did we do in terms of our other local, Mr. Landsman, our other local officials? Well, the special line that was set up, the special portal for us to reach as elected officials, that was impossible to get through to it at many times. Many of my local officials called me because they couldn't get through, we couldn't get through. So the total communication failure was not only with the residents, which is just so totally unacceptable, but the communication from officials who were just trying to help their residents, as well as communication from management to these utility workers who are out there just trying to do their job. People who are on life support. We had a senior citizen complex where there was a 93-year-old woman who had to be rushed to the hospital because she needed her life-saving equipment to stay alive. We had people on the second floor of the same complex who were stuck in their home with no heat because they didn't have the ability to walk downstairs. But a constituent of mine was 9 months pregnant, and it was, a complicated pregnancy, as she described it. Days and days and days, got no help, slept out in the backyard on lawn furniture at times because of not having any heat. And finally, a crew showed up, not because anybody communicated from the top to any crew, but workers from out of town who were nearby, sitting around waiting for instructions, listened to Sophia Hall on WCBS News Radio 88 describing the story, and called her and figured out how to get to this lady's house, and it was a simple wire that they just brought up, and they were able to help her out. So the critical infrastructure was totally abandoned. You heard from Mr. Moniz at Cold Spring Harbor Lab. That shows that this impacted not just us on Long Island, but that had a national impact because they were involved in COVID research. We will never know how much time and how much money was lost because of the failures that happened there, only because they were given misinformation from PSEG. Glen Cove Sewage Treatment Plant, operated by the county, shut down. They couldn't communicate, had problems, they couldn't communicate. That created environmental problems for the entire North Shore. We held a hearing as a Senate, and it was testified under oath by officials of both Nassau and Suffolk County that the Long Island Power Authority did not have any representation at any time at the emergency command centers in Nassau and Suffolk County. That is oversight 101. I used to chair the Suffolk County Water Authority. You'd always have people there 24/7 for oversight, to find out what not only to deal with the immediate issues, but to be prepared for the future in case it happens again. And there also was no redundancy in their communication system, which just seems, totally absurd with a utility of this size. Every utility in the country is supposed to have redundancy. So something has to change, and I'm pleased that LIPA has recognized that, and that they are proposing some paths moving forward. But I also think we have to make it clear that it is not up to LIPA, it's not up to PSEG. It is up to the citizens of the state and their representatives, the New York State Legislature and the governor, who I know is very concerned about this issue as well. We have to figure out how we're going to change this moving forward. We cannot just have cosmetic changes. We're going to change the logo on the car and the name of the private entity that is providing our service. Throughout this country, in this state, we have different ways of providing utility service, and I think that's the core issue that we have to address, and where we welcome, as a member of the legislature, information from the Department of Public Service. Throughout the nation, you're either a total municipal utility or you're a total private utility, but has real oversight by a public consumer agency. We're neither. We have some sort of a hybrid operation, some sort of a public-private partnership that clearly hasn't worked. And even considering what some of the suggestions LIPA has made and other suggestions that others have made, it is very clear that we're going to have to, as a state, reform again the LIPA Act, and we're going to have to make some significant changes. And one of the things that we have to clearly do there, as we discussed, whether or not it's going to be a full municipalization, which may be the direction we have to go in, or some municipalization that will provide some contracting, but obviously it cannot be one total service provider. We have to figure out how we're going to do this. And when we do this, we have to make sure that there is full accountability and oversight. Yes, LIPA totally failed in providing the oversight that it is supposed to during the storm, because they should have caught all these problems much earlier. However, we also have to recognize that the state statute as well does not give LIPA all of the same powers that it gives, for example, the Public Service Commission. And as you know, the Public Service Commission does not have any real direct authority here. So that is a major issue that we're going to have to address as we move forward, because there can't be no window dressing here. There has to be a total review and change in the way we are providing our electrical service to the people who live on Long Island. It can't be simple changes. We have to totally overhaul this, and we have to do it quickly because, as others have mentioned, there could be a storm coming tomorrow, and we have no certainty at all that we are prepared for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and obviously your views as a senator are important, but also your own background dealing with these issues is very valuable as well. And I thank you for recognizing the role of the commission and of course the governor's commitment. You don't think that you use these words, but the governor, I think, is committed to transformative reform, not just window dressing and not just cosmetics. And we want to work with you and with LIPA to try to get from here to there. And I'm sure that you're going to have a lot to say in terms of LIPA's own plans and thinking on how it should reform itself.
And Mr. Lance, I do agree that the governor is totally committed to trying to make sure that we make the changes necessary so that we do not have to live through this type of a nightmare ever again.
Yeah, good. All right. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your experiences. Next, we're going to invite the Senator John Brooks, if he's on, and then Assemblywoman Stacey Pfeffer Amato from Queens and Councilmember Costa Constantinides from Queens. Sometimes folks forget, of course, that PSEG provides service to a part of Queens as well. Senator Brooks, are you on the?
I'm on. I'm not sure if it's if you're picking me up or not.
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
We can't see you, but that's entirely.
All right, consider yourself fortunate on that piece. That's all.
All right, you're up.
I want to first thank you for having the hearings. I'll try to be brief. I agree with many of the comments made. I'm exceptionally concerned with the lack of updated lists for people with various disabilities and health conditions that you don't have. I would want to see the Public Service Commission reach out to the utility and confirm that since this event, they've updated all of those lists. I'm sure they haven't. I think Supervisor Romaine made a number of very good points in terms of LIPA's responsibility, what that was going on. I think Ed was correct with what he had to say. One of the questions I asked during the hearing we had was about drills. My past history has been in the area of emergency management and first responder, and have participated in some of those drills in the past. This particular year, you had not done the drill yet, where you'd made changes to the system, not so much you, but PSEG. Those drills have to be done earlier. Those drills should include all of the town and county governments, so they have an idea of what you're doing and ask questions. I think we really had a lot of problems here. The storm was unique, as Todd had pointed out. It was not a major category hurricane, but it was a violent storm with unusual winds and a lack of rain. Yet we saw the tree fall because of the amount of cover the trees had. I believe that you need to be looking at the CAT models that have been developed to look at storms at different times of year, different directions, different rain numbers and the rest, to understand how many different ways storms can move. Again, we had a storm, and normally we see great tree fall as a result of significant amounts of rain. We didn't have that. We had great tree fall, but you had trees with exceptionally large amount of cover because of the time of year. You weren't prepared for that because you didn't take the time. And again, when I say you, that's not directed at you. That's directed at PSEG. They didn't take the time to study the weather options that we have and the directions of wind that change and what a storm moving east to west versus out to sea, what that's going to do. I think you were very ill prepared. We had a situation where misinformation was continued to be given for an extended period of time, which was absolutely wrong. Communications, as we've all said, were nothing short of a disaster. I think we need to stop patting ourselves on the back when nothing's happened for a couple of years, not because we did a good job, because the storm didn't come along, and to sit there during the problems that we were having and continue to give rosy forecasts as to when outages were going to be restored was absolutely wrong. Again, I think the other thing, in talking to some of the crews from out of state, their criticism was universal that the communication was the worst they'd ever seen in any company. Nobody knew what was what, and really a sad story for all of us. So, like I say, I believe we need to sit down with all levels of government on this, put together a real plan, recognize that the many different variations to storms that we get here on Long Island, and realize Long Island is unique. We basically have an island that's 120 miles long and 18 miles wide. So it's easy to get north to south in terms of time, but east to west or west to east is a challenge. It's hard for you to station some equipment to where you want to place it based on where you think the impact is going to be, because we know storms can change at any minute, particularly the major storms. But I think there should be a requirement here that the catastrophic storm plan should be developed and tested months in advance. It should include the participation of local town and village and county governments to make sure that they're used to what's walking into this thing. There should be an absolute responsibility for the utilities to update every year the list of people with different health concerns and different disabilities. It's scared to realize right now, in the middle of a pandemic, from this past storm, that probably hasn't been done. That's going to cost lives. We can't afford that. So, the excuses are over. We know what happened. The results were there. We weren't prepared. You, the Public Service Commission, should be asking questions. Where are you on this and where are you on that? And if so, we didn't get to that yet. That's not an acceptable answer. If we don't know where each person is that has major health problems right now or is dependent on electricity to operate certain machineries, whoever gives you, I don't know, should also be given their walking papers. This is serious stuff. We could have had large-scale loss of life easily in that storm. We didn't. It was, in terms of the length of the storm, relatively short. It was a fast-moving storm. Yes, winds came from other directions, but the assessment should have been made much faster, gave people information that power was not going to be restored in given time frames, and rather than making excuses, we should have been given the right information, where to go, and how things were going to be addressed. So I'm trying to be as brief as I can, but I think we failed at every level. I think Ed, and where he pointed out LIPA, and the others have pointed out LIPA's part of this mix. LIPA has a responsibility to make sure these drills are done. To give them tests. LIPA should walk and say, what would happen if a storm came in this thing, in this direction? And they better know. These hurricane forecast maps and the disaster programs that have been developed are exceptionally accurate and can give you information. It can tell you what's happening at given locations based on the wind speed and other things. You should be doing that. The drill should be, they should take one of the hurricanes, move it in someplace, make that your drill. Let it happen in front of you. Not have a planned thing where everybody has a script. Oh, now we're calling the so-and-so. Unscripted, here's the storm. This is what happens. The storm can predict some of that stuff and see what we do, because we weren't ready. I don't think we're ready yet. And I think everybody's got to realize there can be no returns of this kind of situation whatsoever. And I would ask the Public Service Commission to call PSEG and ask them if they updated the list of people with different disabilities and health hazards since the storm. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your making time for us. Okay, I think we have Assemblywoman Stacey Pfeffer Amato on the call. Can we bring Stacey in?
I am. Am I here? Am I on?
You're on. Just 1 second.
Okay.
If you're not Stacey Pfeffer Amato, please lower your hand on the app or on your phone. On your phone, if you hit *3, you can raise your hand, and if you hit *3 again, you can lower your hand. So if your hand is up and you're not Stacy Feffermato, please hit *3. So with that, there's Stacy Feffermato. Welcome.
Somebody else wants to be me, then they could jump right in and do that. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I have to say that I agree with all my colleagues who spoke, and again, not to be long and not to keep hammering. We know the situation was not good. We know communication failed. But as someone who lived through Hurricane Sandy, and just to reiterate, I represent the 23rd Assembly District, which is in South Queens, the Rockaway Peninsula, which is less than 5% of PSE&G's customer base. Lived through Hurricane Sandy, where 87% of my district was damaged. And we learned a lot after Hurricane Sandy and have worked very hard from that point. So the same thing here. This is a failure. You can't say anything else. But what do we learn from here? What do we need to do? I actually think that the senator just mentioned things about updating medical lists and really talking about wind. It's funny that he said that, because the same thing with Hurricane Sandy. Was it wind that caused the surge? Was the full moon? You know, everything that every natural cause lined up, and we had Hurricane Sandy. So here's these winds. It was crazy winds. So let's research. Let's take some time and review what it looks like in our communities and how wind affects it. I think the communication was broken in the sense of reporting to our customers, but I have to say, to be all fair here, that my relationship with PSE is very good, and their communication is very good with all the other projects that I have within this peninsula. And it is dealing with New York City and their agencies, and working with buildings that are going up, hotels that are going up, customer service, checking old lines. You know, down here in the peninsula, we have a lot of extra poles, extra wires, and I feel that they've been very proactive working with me in improving themselves in the community. So I can't go without saying that about them. I feel that they're very customer-based, very specific. We move up timelines for projects. And again, we always deal with a lot of other issues here, being that I'm the city opposed to the rest of Long Island. But that being said, we are a peninsula, and we're the least amount of coverage, but the service wasn't what we needed. And I would just like the opportunity to say to the Public Service Commission and everyone that we need to work on what to do next. Because everyone said, oh, 100-year storm, Hurricane Sandy. This is the worst windstorm, Isa, the worst windstorm we've ever seen. Well, there's always going to be a next. We can sit here and say we'll never have a pandemic again, but I think in the hearts of hearts, we all sit here and say to ourselves, of course we will, because now we've lived through that. So I just ask to work together, to be very transparent in suggestions, new ideas, think out of the box, how it could be improved, letting everyone know what's been improved, and constantly reporting that so that the customers can know what changes have been made, new additional information, how to get reporting. Everyone's very computer savvy now, so everyone went right on where they could, their phones, or however they could, to see where they were in the queue of getting their power back. You know, those are the things that we need to work on. I think everything is a learning, is an example to learn, and I think this is a big one. I have faith that we will get better. I just think that our constituents and the customers don't expect to be paying more for less. So I think that's the focus, is to improve it. But I just want to make sure that I'm very fair in this conversation to say that I think they helped me get over a lot of hurdles that's in this community, and looking forward to work. I am a member of the corporation's committee in the Assembly, and I look forward to more discussions with the utilities and how we can improve. And that's really it. I'm going to keep it short. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. I see that Daniel Esquardo from the Brookhaven Town Highway Department is with us. We had called him earlier. So Mr. Esquardo, I'm going to call you next. But right now we're calling up Councilmember Costa Constantinides. Costa, if you are calling in, please hit *3 and raise your hand so we can bring you in. Do we see Costa Constantinides raising his hand or in the forum in any way?
I do not.
Okay. All right. If we see him, we will come back to him. Now we're going to go to Mr. Lasquardo. After Mr. Lasquardo will be Philip Andreas, the electric superintendent from the Village of Rockville Center. And then after Mr. Andreas will be Patrick Judice, the business manager for IBEW Local 1049, if he's on the call. Mr. Lasquardo, you with us?
Yes, Mr. Landsman, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Very good. Well, perseverance pays off. I was logged in since 4, but I had to log back out and log back in, and I'm thankful you can recognize me now. Thank you for having this hearing. As you know, I'm the elected highway superintendent for the town of Brookhaven. As the supervisor said earlier, we are the largest municipality in the state. We're 520 square miles, 500,000 residents. And I run the 3rd largest highway department in New York State, behind only the New York State Department of Transportation and the New York City DOT. This storm posed a significant problem for us in terms of response. And that is something that I wanted to speak to. Many have spoken today about consumers, but I'd like to talk about what this did to our response time as a municipal highway department. Unquestionably, our response time was delayed. It took longer to clear roads. It took longer to get emergency responders to where they needed to go because we could not get those roads open. The municipal portal, which had been touted as kind of a magic bullet, something that would solve many of the problems we had with communication with the power company, failed 1 hour and 45 minutes into the storm. We had to resort to emailing Excel spreadsheets of the locations of our problems. And the information was not going out to the survey crews that were out on the road with my employees. For the next several days after the storm, my foremen were actually directing the out-of-state crews that were embedded to us to problem areas, because more often than not, the areas they were dispatched to, there was either no problem or the problem had already been resolved. Those survey crews are tasked with de-energizing the lines and making sure it is safe for my crews to go in, remove the trees, get those roads open, and make sure that everyone is safe doing so. That did not happen. Again, I have to stress, this failure of this system, this communication system, unquestionably delayed the response time of the highway department in responding to this disaster, being able to get these lines de-energized, keep my employees safe, and get these roads open. We cannot minimize the impact of this storm. It was a severe storm as far as impact to the electric grid. There was more vegetative debris from this storm than from Superstorm Sandy. We had well over 1,600 trees down on roadways throughout the town. Well over 400 of those were involved with wires. We are very fortunate in the town of Brookhaven. We have invested heavily in a command and control system that includes a very effective 800 megahertz radio system. So I was able to dispatch my crews and those embedded survey line crews very effectively, but that task should not have fallen to us. That is something that we should have been tagging along, so to speak, with those PSEG survey crews. They should have known where those problems were. They should have been de-energizing those lines so we could follow behind them. the tables were really turned that we were directing those individuals. I have to say that the district managers were responsive when we were emailing this information to them, but we took a tremendous step back, even from where we were before the implementation of the municipal portal system. And it is something that, again, prolonged this process and caused a great deal of consternation on the part of public works employees throughout Suffolk County. I happen to be the president of the Suffolk County Highway Superintendents Association, and in speaking with all of my colleagues following this storm, we all experienced similar situations. All of our response times were delayed, and some of my colleagues in smaller townships or villages that do not have the type of communications equipment that we have in Brookhaven had even more problems than we did in dispatching those crews.
Thank you very much. I mean, your testimony, everyone's testimony is important, but yours in particular, because I'm not sure that people understand that when utilities fail as PSEG is alleged to have failed here, those responsibilities have to be taken up by someone. And in your case, it's your department filling in for the gaps and shortcomings that emerged when PSEG didn't do what it's alleged to have failed to do. Would your department have made an application to FEMA for reimbursement for costs associated with dealing with Isaias?
Yes, we absolutely have. After the disaster declaration was finally put in place, where that process is rather slow moving, but we are seeking reimbursement for the expenses that we had. And quite frankly, there are still many dangerous trees, hangers, leaners, stumps, or stalks that were cut out of wires, but have not yet been removed. The cleanup from the storm will continue well into 2021. And we're hopeful that federal assistance will be forthcoming to help municipalities cover those remaining cleanup costs.
Did you finish, or did we lose you?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize if my audio cut out there momentarily. What I was going to say was, many people on this hearing realize this, but many in the public do not. Public works departments, highway departments, are the first gear in the machine of public safety. If we do not open the roads, the police department, the fire department, the ambulances can't get to those in need. The utility companies, the actual line workers that are going to rebuild the systems can't get there to perform that work. And the limited number of survey crews that were embedded with us at the outset of this storm, and the few that were put on in the days following, to begin with, were not nearly enough to help us get through the number of tree-involved wires that we were dealing with. But they also did not have the information that they needed. It was really a near communication blackout on their part. I really cannot stress that enough, the difficulty that it posed for us, and the delay in the response time that we endured in getting those trees off of the roads, and getting those roads back open so that the first responders and the line crews could get back in there and get to those in need and get to the business of restoring power.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you were patient and we were able to get you to tell what happened, your vision, your experiences during and after the storm. Thank you very much. So next, I'm going to go just give Costa Constantinides an opportunity if he's on. If he's on by phone, hit *3. It will raise your hand and we will bring you into the call. If not, we will go to Philip Andreas. If he is on, the electric superintendent for the Village of Rockville Center. Mr. Andreas, are you with us? All right, Mr. Andreas, if you're calling in, please hit *3 and raise your hand. Aaron, if you see Councilmember Constantinides or Mr. Andreas log in later, let me know and we will bring them in. Now we'll go to Patrick Judice, the business manager for Local 1049. If he is on, is he with us, Patrick?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just tell me how you pronounce your last name. I know I botched it.
My last name is pronounced Gadis.
Gadis.
Gadis, yes.
All right. Well, welcome. And
I'm not sure. Do you have my video here?
We don't have your video. We can hear you.
Okay. Let me see if I can start the video. Okay. My camera's on, so you should be seeing me right about now.
There you go. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Chairman Lankman, I appreciate you having us on here today and an opportunity. And I also want to thank Commissioner Berman for her presence here also. I think it's very important that everyone's voice is heard here. I have listened from the beginning of the hearing on everyone's remarks going forward, and I understand everyone's frustration. I can tell you this. You had for everyone in the political community, the senators, the assembly people that were inundated in phone calls from their constituents. I could tell you this: we understand that. Local 1049. If you don't mind, I would just briefly like to introduce who we are as IBW Local 1049. We represent approximately 2,160 members that work on the electric system. About 239 of them are line clearance tree trimmers, 420 are line contractors, and the remaining 1,500 are employees of PSEG. And every one of them are dedicated and hardworking employees. They take their duty very seriously, and they are deeply committed to providing reliable and safe electric service out here to our Long Island neighbors. They know that their job is to provide the service that brings comfort and safety in their homes, that drives businesses out there and keeps the economy moving. And I can tell you this, they're a dedicated and strong workforce. And for everyone out there that has spoken before me and that speaks after me, and if they refer to my brothers and sisters as wonderfully as the prior speakers have, you have my thanks. I thank you very much for the acknowledgement. For the people that are working out there, whether it's a line worker out there in a bucket or a customer service representative that is taking phone calls from frustrated customers, they don't often hear a body of thanks from the public that they serve, and it means the world to them. But I would like to address something that I find is important, and I would like to make sure that this goes on the record here. We have had a mutually beneficial or a partnership with PSEG Long Island since 2015, and it's been a good partnership. They are a good employer. I believe that in my conversations with the leadership of PSEG, they have a serving heart. They know that they have to provide reliable, safe, and efficient service to the Long Island community. I don't think anybody there is saying that the performance for Tropical Storm Isaias was proper. It was not. Okay, the service that was rendered was it was impossible to get service restored once the outage management system went down, and they understand that, and they know that that was a mistake. But we are concerned with a proposal, and I say I'm talking about my brothers and sisters and I at Local 1049. We're concerned about a proposal that is being thrown about quite a bit, and that proposal is for full municipalization of the electric power grid on Long Island. That is not something that we've seen here. We've always had a public-private partnership and a private sector workforce. I can tell you that the storm response, if this was a municipalized utility and the outage management system had gone down for that, it would have been equally as bad. I don't think it would have mattered who was in charge. I think what it would, to us, when you have a fully municipalized system, we are looking at changes as the appetite of the political community changes, so can the focus on how the electric service is provided. I want to be clear on this. No matter what happens, the standard must be always unparalleled service. It must be uninterrupted service. It must be quick restoration of service when there's a problem. There can't be any other deviation from that. And municipalization, I do not believe, is going to change that. Now, if we move forward, we need to make some changes. There's no doubt. And I'm willing to work with anybody in state government, Public Service Commission, Department of Public Service, the PSEG Long Island, the Long Island Power Authority. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that the problems that we had last summer never occur again. We're ready to step up. I want to thank everybody for giving us an opportunity to speak. I want to make sure that everybody understands we will work with PSEG Long Island to ensure that services is provided in the best way possible. I know I keep repeating myself, and I apologize. I was just looking at my notes here. But thank you very much for your opportunity and for the time. If you have any questions, I'll be willing to answer.
Thank you. I do appreciate your making the time. And I don't know if you heard at the start of the forum, I had occasion to mention that one of the things that we've heard in all of our forums is just a consistent appreciation and respect and gratitude for the folks who are out there actually doing the work and an understanding that whatever shortcomings and failures occurred, they were not the fault or the result of the workforce. So so I appreciate that. And also, let me just say greetings from the hometown of Local 3. Leicester is just a few blocks from where I am, and I had the pleasure of representing them and Chris Erickson and the whole crew in the city council. So,
nice.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Next up, we are going to hear from gonna give Philip Andreas and Costa Constantinidis another call. Xenia, can you see them? Are they on the forum?
I do not see them on the forum, and no caller has their hand raised at this moment.
All right, so we're going to move forward, and now we're going to hear from the next three speakers, if they're on the call, are Amani Hussein, who's the Director of Government Affairs for the Long Island Builders Institute, Bill Evans, who's the owner of WLNG 92.1 FM radio, and Billy Roberti, who is a renewable energy consultant at Green Choices Consulting. Those are the next three. Let's start with Mr. Hussein, Amani Hussein. If you are with us, please turn on your video, or if you're calling in, hit *3 and raise your hand. Amani Hussein.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm also speaking on behalf of Mitch Pally as well, who's the CEO of Long Island Builders Institute, so he doesn't need to be called as well. So again, I'm from Long Island Builders Institute. In these times of economic uncertainty, it is more important than ever for Long Island to be served by an electric utility which meets the needs of certainty, credibility, community awareness, and preparation. Such a utility must not only be aware of what they need to do, but the utility must also understand that it needs to be aware of any shortcomings in their preparations and be willing to make the changes necessary. It is in this regard that the Department of Public Service and the New York State Legislature must review the activities of PSEG Long Island, not only for one situation with regard to its activities relating to Tropical Storm Isaias, but also to its prior activities for the past number of years on Long Island. PSEG has been a very important corporate partner for Long Island over the years, both with regard to their work to ensure the safety and reliability of the electric system, as well as their community activities to make our community a better place to live and work. One could very easily list the numerous reliability initiatives which have been accomplished over the years, including the substantial tree clearing program, the modernization of aging power lines and infrastructure, and working with community partners and elected officials with regard to new power sources and clean energy. In addition, PSEG Long Island has been a significant corporate partner to the numerous not-for-profit organizations to provide major health and social service benefits to our residents, from specific corporate giving to the thousands of volunteer hours provided by their employees. PSEG Long Island has been a major contributor to improving the quality of life for many of our residents. While all of us, and most especially PSEG itself, understand completely that their response to the major devastation inflicted on Long Island by Tropical Storm Isaias was not up to the standards required by an electric utility system in New York State, it is our belief that a company should not be judged solely upon this one specific situation, but upon the cumulative impact of their time on Long Island. The recent report by Long Island Power Authority regarding the significant weakness in the system, which Tropical Storm Isaias has brought to the surface, clearly shows what activities must be taken to bring the system to a new state of reliability and credibility. It is often the most important symbol of good corporate citizenship as to how a company responds to their shortcomings and how it reacts to what has taken place. Their public acknowledgement of what went wrong shows their understanding of the importance of the issue, and now we will all watch the specific actions it takes to implement the recommendations outlined in the report and any other actions which may come to the forefront to assist in the restoration of the system. It is our belief that PSEG Long Island should be given the opportunity and the time to implement the necessary changes with specific time periods for action, and with the department issuing progress reports every 3 months as to the actions taken. The job of any electric utility, especially one facing the significant issues which have taken place as a result of Tropical Storm Isaias, is to both implement the specific recommendations to make the actual electric system reliable, but also to fix the credibility issues raised by making sure that the company does so in a transparent manner. The Long Island Builders Institute believes that PSEG Long Island is in the best position of any of the possible alternatives to accomplish both goals and to modernize our electric system so that it can survive whatever Mother Nature throws at Long Island. We urge this body to give them the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Rory, you're muted.
Sorry, that has to happen at least once every form. Otherwise, it's not an official form, and we have to start the whole thing all over. Let me say, Ms. Hussein, I just wanted to apologize. I think I referred to you as Mr. Hussein before I heard your voice, so I apologize for that. I think at the start of your remarks, you had said you were reading testimony or a letter from someone else. If that's correct, can you just tell us who that is?
Yes. So I was representing my CEO, Mitch Pally, also from Long Island Builders Institute.
Got it. And can you just give us a very short description of the Long Island Building Institute and who you represent, who your members are, if it's a membership organization?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we are a membership organization formed in 1941. We're an association of building industry professionals, and basically our goal is to make Long Island a better place to live and work. Create a balance between the economy, the environment, and create development opportunities as well. So many of our members are in the building industry or the industry to help form development. So we have approximately 600 members, and we are the largest organization on New York of our kind.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing those thoughts and those perspectives. Thank you.
No.
Next, we're going to hear from Bill Evans, the owner of WLNG. Mr. Evans, are you with us? If you're calling in, there you
Yes,
are.
I am here.
All right. Terrific. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. In this opportunity that I get to speak, I want to refresh everyone's memory that Isaias was a hurricane. Its winds were 85 miles per hour. It was also a prolific storm that created the most tornadoes in a storm that passed over New York City and Long Island. Every storm is different. Hurricane Sandy, which was called Superstorm Sandy, was winds of 75 miles per hour, and it made landfall, making a left turn in Manalapan, New Jersey. Every storm is different. So what I want to say to you as a professional meteorologist and broadcaster for nearly 40 years and having grown up in Mississippi alongside the Gulf of Mexico, I know something about severe weather. Even with satellites, hurricane hunters, Doppler radar, and over a century of scientific observations, forecasting hurricanes and severe weather will remain an imprecise science. The focus of this hearing is PSEG's performance on Long Island and in the face of severe weather. Although, based on the public comments of the current LIPA chairman, there is an underlying question of whether operation of the region's energy grid should be handed back to LIPA. I need to reflect on a public event that occurred some 4 weeks before Superstorm Sandy. I participated in a Long Island town hall meeting on hurricane preparedness conducted in a hangar at Republic Airport. Both county executives attended, as did then head of LIPA, Michael Hervey. He had been interim CEO and chief operating officer of LIPA for more than 2 years. He told the audience LIPA was fully prepared for any eventuality. And while he cautioned that people could be without power for days in the event of a hurricane, as a public authority, LIPA was staffed and organized to confront and defeat any storm. In the terrible days that would follow Sandy, I remember that the governor sent his key executives to essentially live at LIPA's headquarters, taking over from a bureaucracy that was unable to put the power back on. Mr. Hervey would depart soon after. Incidentally, according to a postmortem conducted by the New York Times at the last meeting of LIPA trustees before Sandy hit New York, the group spent a total of 39 seconds discussing possible storm preparations. So here we are, we're at another public meeting, and based on press reports, LIPA is suggesting that PSEG's communications failure compels them to take the keys back and operate the energy grid themselves. Now, I would argue that the state got it right after Sandy when it took LIPA out of the equation and made the private sector responsible for their operation. If you get it right, you are incentivized. If you get it wrong, you will be financially punished. But the idea that we would go back to a public authority that historically had neither the means, the motivation, or the mission to connect with Long Islanders during times of crisis strikes me as failure waiting in incubation. But since it is being publicly considered by LIPA's current leadership, it begs a number of questions. What would be the cost to the taxpayer for LIPA to reinvent what PSEG has put into place over the last many years? And how much will LIPA pay to ensure that PSEG's blackout response system works better? How many people will LIPA need to hire? And the benefits, what are they going to look like? The questions are many, and the need to be asked by far more expert observers than me as a meteorologist. But here is our reality. If LIPA is given back the job of actually running the system at some time in its future, it is going to be faced with a hurricane whose impact no one accurately forecasts. Maybe it will be a sudden Category 5, fueled by undetected warm waters. Maybe it will race up from Cape Hatteras at a shocking 50 miles an hour. Maybe it will lurch suddenly west, and instead of skirting Montauk, it barrels up Route 110. And then a committee similar to this one will be convened to study LIPA's failure in getting the power back. And someone will make the recommendation that we go back to the PSEG model. And that's where we are today. My recommendations, Mr. Chairman, invoke penalties for failure. Fix what you have, and let's do it before the next storm. 2020 was a record-breaking year for hurricanes. We're headed toward 2021's hurricane season. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for joining us and for giving us the benefit of your unique experience. I think I might have misidentified you as the owner of the radio station. I don't think that's correct, right?
That's correct. And my wife and I own WLNG Radio.
Oh, you are the owner.
That's correct.
Okay, terrific. All right. Well, thank you very much. I have very much enjoyed hearing your perspective as a professional meteorologist and someone who obviously followed these issues for a very long time. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Billy Roberti. I may be having that first name wrong, but is Billy Roberti available from Green Choices Consulting?
I am here.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll start my video. And yes, you did pronounce it properly. Good afternoon. Thank you for having this hearing. My name is Billy Roberti, and my husband and I live off Oakwood Road in Huntington Station. I am very involved in promoting the transition to renewable energy, and I volunteer with Mothers Out Front. This is a grassroots organization of mothers and others focused on policies and actions that move us away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy to protect children's health today and ensure they have a livable climate tomorrow. However, once we transition off fossil fuels, we will be entirely reliant on our electric grid. It needs to be reliable. During Tropical Storm Isaias, we received no timely, accurate, or adequate information from PSEG Long Island about what was happening before or during the outage. We had to rely on Newsday for information. We made numerous daily attempts to contact PSEG Long Island for information and assistance during the outage, and I will tell you the responses we received. Here's my story. I was working from my home on Tuesday, August 4th during Tropical Storm Isaias. When about 2 p.m., our power went out. I quickly saved my work on my computer and powered it off. The electricity didn't return until 4:45 a.m. Saturday morning, August 8th. My husband and I were unable to work during that time. A giant tree 2 houses away had been twisted off its trunk and lay on all the lines from the telephone pole in front of our house. The pole was leaning from the weight, and the road was impassable. Low wires hung across a small space that was not blocked. I texted PSEG Long Island almost immediately, but I kept getting error messages. My husband on his cell phone found it impossible to get through via the menu options. My husband also tried to report the problem via the internet using his cell phone. He keyed in his text about the problem, but when he clicked submit, nothing happened. He tried the automated system. We have no information was what he heard about half the time. The rest of the time, there was a busy signal or dead air. He finally chose the emergency downed wire menu item and was able to speak with someone, but they could provide no more info than a general statement that crews had been dispatched. My husband also reported at that time a large tree was lying on the power line. This was all on the first day. After that, he called numerous times the next day for an update and got, "We're working on it," at best. When he called on Thursday, August 6th, around 2 p.m., which is 48 hours later, he was told our power would be restored by 4 that day. That's 2 hours later. He told them the 80-foot tree lying on the line had not yet been removed, and that would take hours. The reply was, "Oh, we don't have that in our records." My husband asked to call back from a supervisor. He was also told to try calling early the next morning. So on Friday, he called about 7:30 a.m. and a person actually answered the phone who was sympathetic and said, "We have down, your power was restored last night at 11 p.m. My husband repeated Thursday's conversation, "Tree is still down." At this point, he was incredibly pissed off. Compared with Sandy, this emergency process was much worse. My husband told him, "You don't know what's going on. I have seen no survey or repair crews anywhere in Huntington since the power went off, and I've been driving around a lot." He told them on Oakwood Road, a pole with a transfer switch has a tree leaning against it. This should be a priority repair because the tree is a direct ground which will throw the switch off again as soon as the electricity is turned on. He impressed that person with his knowledge. But this was news to them. They didn't know about this. At 10 a.m. on Friday, we saw the first repair crew at Jefferson Elementary School on Oakwood Road. We thanked them profusely, telling them we were the first we had seen. My husband also told them about the pole with the transfer switch, and they told us new crews would be arriving in the next hour. Around 4 p.m. that day, crews arrived to start removing the tree that was on the power line on our street. Hooray! The power was restored at 4:45 a.m. on Saturday. You know why we know? Because our windows were open, we faced the street, and we heard them. And we woke up and cheered. Let me say this. This whole experience was maddening, and we were lucky. Thank you to Huntington Town Board member Joan Sergel, who went to Facebook to offer help to residents, and her office staff who tried to assist. Unfortunately, their advice was to call PSEG Long Island. This system must change. The PSEG LI emergency management was pitiful. This is the second utility, by the way, not the first. We had National Grid, and National Grid lost its franchise for electricity on Long Island because of their Sandy response. So this is the second utility to run our electric system and fail to deal adequately with the natural disaster. So obviously, having a public-private partnership for our electric system is not the way to go. There's not much accountability. When you have people in New Jersey who are the decision makers for what goes on Long Island, you can't possibly have the kind of service you would have if the people lived and worked on Long Island. Reliability and accountability are paramount. I believe LIPA should become a fully municipalized electric utility. The examples I have looked at of municipal electric utilities seem very successful. Now, maybe, as the person before said, that the people in LIPA are not really adequate to run an electric utility, but that doesn't mean the idea is bad. It means we need new personnel. So please, we really need to look into having one entity fully responsible for our electric grid, or we're just going to hire somebody else and have the same problem or try and fix a system that doesn't work. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much for your very thoughtful and cogent testimony. We appreciate it very much. Our next three speakers are Billy Hoagland from the Hoagland Group, Donald McAvoy from Schmergel Enterprises, and Eric Alexander from Vision Long Island Main Street Alliance. So we'll start with Mr. Hoagland. If you're there, please let us know.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity tonight, Special Counsel Lantzman and Commissioner Berman, for hosting this forum. It's been a privilege to listen to the astounded elected officials as well as constituents thus far this evening. By way of background quick, we are an electrical utility contractor here on Long Island. So we are the contractor bucket trucks that are out there restoring the power after these weather events take place. Our family's been involved on Long Island for over 30 years in this space. And so we've seen the different gyrations of, I believe Senator Gorin put it, of the different logos that have come in and out over the years, from Lilco to LIPA, Market Span, and Market Span to Keyspan, and Keyspan to Grid, and Grid to PSEG, where we're at now. And we've worked with each and every one of them. And while unfortunately today we're talking about the August storm, and there's no, as other panelists have spoke tonight, there's no good way to summarize what took place under that storm. But what I can tell you is there's been a lot of progress since that storm. And PSEG is committed toward strengthening our electrical infrastructure here on Long Island. It is, has been pointed out, an imperfect alignment between the relationship between LIPA and PSEG, or whoever is there at this point, with having a company manage a system that they do not own, which is different than the other neighboring utilities, which as well experienced hardship as a result of this August storm. But if we could take a step back just for a moment to point out some good that has happened since Superstorm Sandy. Okay, so post Superstorm Sandy, and respectfully to the speakers earlier today, PSEG did successfully administer over $700 million in federal funds toward hardening the system. That, in my humble opinion, is why it was over $500,000 outages in August. 500,000 outages in August, and not over the 1 million like we had seen in the past in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. Post-storm, okay, so post-August, and I hear the much warranted concern to what happens if and when another weather event takes place. But since the August storm, it should be noted, we have been mobilized for storm emergency restoration 12 times for 12 different weather events, with only one of them being another named storm, that in Zeta. So they are committed toward improving each ratepayer's experience and moving forward. I see it from the front lines each and every day. We are a union contractor. Mr. Gadis's members are our employees, and we have a great partnership with labor and the utility company, and we are all equally determined. And I could tell you, everybody right now that's listening or that's been on this leadership from PSEG has taken the accountability. I don't think that they've hidden from it at all with the system failures that took place. They've improved upon that, and they're committed to continuing to improve upon that so this doesn't happen again. In life, we all have or will come across difficult challenges and decisions, and we may not handle the situation the same if presented again. PSEG Long Island is committed from the top down, along with the contractors and labor community, to ensuring a different result should, and unfortunately when, a similar situation will arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you know, the same thing that we said to Mr. Gadis, we say to you, and thank you for the workers that that you have who go out on the streets and do a very difficult job in very trying circumstances. Next, we're going to hear from Donald McAvoy, if he's available. And then after Mr. McAvoy, there's Eric Alexander, Eric Bray, and Matthew Braunwart. But right now, Donald McAvoy. Are you with us, Mr. McAvoy?
Yes, I am, sir.
Welcome. You're up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. I am the Director of Operations for Schmergel Enterprises, and we are a real estate development company on Long Island. We currently have 14 buildings that we own and manage, And I personally have been in the facilities world for over 25 years here on Long Island. Now, this tropical storm did major damage to the power grid, not only here on Long Island, but in the tri-state area. It's very obvious that there were a lot of power outages, and the communications coming out of PSEG Long Island were not done right. It's very obvious from all the other speakers that that seems to be the major problem here. The trucks that were out, as I was inspecting my facilities, were all working hard. Personnel were out there in force. And I believe that they did everything they can to get the power restored as quickly as they could. Now, there's a lot of media stories out there, and I know it's very inconvenient to not have power in your house. I was without it for a day or so, and I understand that. But there is a system in place to repair outages. You have to start at one point and work your way out. You just can't go out and fix everything right from the start. And I think that is something that people need to understand. As I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've survived the loco and the NAT grid and the LIPA years. And I can honestly say that I feel PSEG Long Island has been the best at running our power system. You've seen the men out there replacing lines. You heard the speaker before me about how much they put into making sure that everything is coming back up as much as they can. And I believe that they do a very good job at it. They're also very involved in the community, and I don't think you can not comment on everything the company does and hold them accountable for, and just focus on this one storm. I've seen their people at all of the cancer walks down at Jones Beach. They had a very big veterans week where they did 11 projects for veterans. One of them was in the American Legion, where I am a member. They painted the entire hall. This is all volunteer work. They were at the outlet center where they did the tree lighting. They had their trailer there. They were educating people on the power grid and how it works. So they're doing all they can to get the information out to everyone. So again, I'm not going to go through all of what everyone else has already said and repeat it all. But in closing, holding this company accountable for its actions is necessary. But you cannot look at the one incident and not take all the other good into consideration. I think canceling their contract would be an injustice to not only their employees, but also our communities. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your perspective. Next, we have Eric Alexander, and after Eric Alexander will be Eric Bray, and then Matthew Braunmort. Mr. Alexander, are you with us?
Yes.
All right, you're up.
Hey, all right, thank you. Yeah, Eric Alexander, Director of Vision Long Island, also founder of the 45 downtown member Long Island Main Street Alliance. We have some experience as an organization through Sandy response and also coronavirus response in a different form. You know, we do kick into action as far as reacting to local communities' needs, and you know, this hurricane definitely impacted a lot of people, small businesses in our downtowns, no doubt. We did review LIPA's recommendations. Our board of directors has not taken a formal stance on any of them in time for this hearing or maybe even their next hearing. Having said that, multiple parties have asked us to testify. These are some general points of our experiences with the storm. And we're not experts on utility performance, let me be clear. But here's what we know and experienced. We received calls, about 50 calls constantly from local communities, small businesses through the days of the storm, from members of our Main Street Alliance, small businesses and chambers, some elderly folks also in the community we had relationships with. We did have relationships and do have good relationships with PSEG staff, so we were able to get some information flowing. I want to credit John Keating and members of his team who were very accessible and thoughtful. Obviously, the computer systems were not working in a functional way, but they were very hands-on and accessible. So I want to thank them for that. But obviously, there were massive delays and problems. The painful time for small businesses and lost inventory was a big issue. That was tough after the lockdowns. You know, after the lockdowns and the limited reopenings that they had followed with all these regulations, you know, for a lot of days, there was no clarity of timeline of when they're back. So, you know, restaurants ordering inventory, big challenges, and they didn't know when their freezers would be back, and, you know, whether they order temporary power supplies, real questions. So really boil down this part of what we'd say, we need a communication system that enlists, and this is a challenge, mayors, town officials, other electeds, chambers, community leaders. They're all the frontline ambassadors to real dialogue and connection, and many of them didn't have information. So we need less reliance on technology and more on people. My understanding is these manual systems of the spreadsheets and everything save the day. So let's reinvest in a backup system that's almost manual. So we have the ability to empower our local leaders. So that's definitely an issue. And it's a problem not just here, in all bigger government programs. Long Island is a bottom-up place, and community systems and institutions need to adapt and reflect to that. Lastly, I want to speak, it'd be wrong for me to not say about our thoughts on PSEG as a community partner. We've done work for 22 years in different downtowns. We feel this company has been attentive to local main streets. They have put out programs for Main Street businesses, $25,000 programs, vacant space programs. We gave them a Smart Growth Award for that. Through the pandemic, they had outdoor dining programs, which was really critical to get people outside. So that's important. They have a slew of clean energy programs on solar installs, energy efficiency, electric heat pumps, and things of that nature that are important for shifting into clean energy systems. Yeah, about a dozen of our Main Street Alliance members were able to get those outdoor dining programs. So those types of things are really critical. The investment on main streets, the investment on clean energy. So we'd want to see that ongoing, no matter wherever this goes. Community outreach staff with PSEG are accessible, and they are present in local communities. I want to say, certainly on a staff line level, those folks are out there. So the bottom line, I'll just end. Money on Main Street to help small business, good. Investing in clean energy, good. Bottom up, community needs and communication needs improvement as far as in the middle of these crises, really making sure that the community leaders themselves have this information and are getting the word out side by side with the folks managing the storm. So we're all kind of can really be in this together and have the same information.
Terrific. Thank you very much for joining us. Next, we're going to hear from Eric Bray. And Mr. Bray, are you with us? If you are calling in, you're here?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's some weird feedback, but we can hear you. Let's give it a go. Mr. Bray? We can hear you now. It's a little choppy. Let's try it though.
Okay. I had to turn the computer on, so it probably was giving some feedback. So, Eric Bray, Reliable Services.
Mr. Bray, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't know if you can hear me. We're having great difficulty hearing you. It's very choppy and really I can't make out the words. Xenia, just to make sure it's not on my end, are you hearing Mr. Bray any better?
No, I'm also hearing it very choppy.
Yeah, Mr. Bray, how about you call in by phone? That might be easier. Xenia, can you just read out the phone number he should call in?
The phone number he can call in to speak. Let me get that number. It's 1-800-342-3330.
1-800-342-3330. Give us a call in on your phone and then raise your hand and we will get back to you.
He has, excuse me, Rory, he has to leave a message and we'll retrieve it and we'll give him the information he needs.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So I think we lost him. So hopefully he'll figure that out. Okay, let's now go on to our next speaker, Matthew Braunwart. Mr. Braunwart, are you with us? While we're waiting for Mr. Braunwart, and if you are calling in, please hit *3 and raise your hand. That will raise your hand. We're also going to go to next Mitch Pally, Robert Willemston, and Ronald Rosenberg. Yes.
Hi. Hi, it's Matthew Braunwart. How are you, Mr.
Good,
Commissioner?
Mr. Braunwart. You're up.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for this opportunity. I am here on behalf of Elecnor Hawkeye to express our support for PSEG Long Island. Elecnor Hawkeye is an electrical contractor that performs transmission and distribution construction, substation construction, and storm restoration services under contract to PSEG, as well as other large investor-owned utilities such as Con Edison, Orange and Rockland, Eversource, and Avangrid, to name a few. Much of our management and labor force has worked on the current electrical system while it was operated by LIPA, Keyspan, National Grid, all prior to PSEG Long Island. In 2014, PSEG Long Island assumed the management of an electrical grid that was seriously damaged by Superstorm Sandy. Over the last 7 years, PSEG Long Island has worked hard to provide first-class service, respond to community needs, address the demands of government officials, and deliver a more reliable system while making major improvements. PSEG Long Island managers, engineers, and planners have worked tirelessly and efficiently to harden hundreds of miles of aging power lines using federal money, not customer dollars. PSEG has taken this responsibility very seriously. PSEG Long Island is an important client of Elecnor Hawkeye that demands high standards in safety and contractor performance. Working on the electrical grid requires compliance with safety protocol, and Elecnor Hawkeye shares PSEG Long Island's absolute commitment to working safely. Concurrently, PSEG Long Island is always diligent to ensure that the work performed is on budget and on schedule. Elecnor Hawkeye works very hard to meet the expectations set forth by PSEG Long Island. While there's often criticism during challenging times, it is our opinion that PSEG Long Island performed their due diligence in the utilization of Elecnor Hawkeye's emergency response resource during Tropical Storm Isaias. Elecnor Hawkeye was given timely notification of the need for emergency storm response. We provided PSEG Long Island with emergency restoration and wire watch services. PSEG Long Island maintained efficient communication and direction with Elecnor Hawkeye throughout the storm event. Respectfully, I would submit on behalf of Elecnor Hawkeye that PSEG has implemented measures to continuously improve the operation of Long Island's electrical system and have exceeded the efforts of their predecessors. Elecnor Hawkeye is challenged daily by PSEG Long Island to be a safer, more efficient, and better contractor. This has never been more evident than the last year when we have all been required to overcome the difficulties presented by the COVID-19 global pandemic while continuing the important work we do. PSEG Long Island and Elecnor Hawkeye have had to push harder and work smarter to continue to deliver a safe and productive work environment. Elecnor Hawkeye firmly believes that PSEG is the right company to manage the electrical grid on Long Island. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Next, I don't know if Mr. Bray is back. If he is called in and can hit *3 and raise his hand, we can bring him into the forum. If not yet, then we'll move to Mitch Pally from the Long Island Builders Institute. I think we heard from Ms. Hossain on his behalf, but if Mr. Pally's there, he's registered. Mr. Pally, are you with us?
We have a caller with their hand up, and I'm not sure if. Hello, caller.
Xenia, can you bring them in?
I am doing. They should be. They're unmuted. They're just not speaking.
All right, caller, can you hear us?
Or we're not hearing.
Can you hear us, caller? Okay, let's move on to Robert Willemston. And after Mr. Williamston, we're going to do hear from Ronald Rosenberg and Samuel Chu. So, Mr. Williamston, are you on the call? If you're calling in, please hit *3, and we will see your raised hand.
Hi.
Hi, who's this? Hello, who's this? All right. Is Ronald Rosenberg on the call? Ronald Rosenberg? If you're there, calling in, hit *3. And if he's not there, let's move on to Samuel Chu from Edgewise Energy. Mr. Chu, are you on the call? Is any hand raised, Zinnia?
Nope. I'm going through. The hand that was raised was Rebecca, and I don't know who she was representing. I'll unmute her again and see if she responds.
I'm here.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Who are you? What's your name?
And CEO of Rebecca San, I'm President and CEO of the Health and Welfare Council of Long Island.
All right. Well, you're like 4 speakers from now, but you know what? Mr. Chu doesn't seem to be responding, and we've got you. So let's make the most of it.
Mr. Chu is on.
Mr. Chu is on?
Yes, he is.
All right. Well, listen, Rebecca's on too. So let's let Rebecca go, and then we'll go to Mr. Chu. Okay.
I think Sammy, as one of my board members, will be okay with that.
All right.
So my name is Rebecca San, and I'm the President and CEO of the Health and Welfare Council of Long Island. We are an umbrella organization in the nonprofit sector, and we work across every area of health and human services. The reason I am here to speak today is to offer perhaps another perspective. When I'm charged with making a decision and understanding the complexity of a set of circumstances, it's always critically important to me to full picture. While I will not opine on the actual response to the storm, it is my intent to provide you with another context for your respectful consideration. PSEG in Long Island has played a critical role on Long Island that has catalyzed disaster preparedness. At the organization I lead, we convene the Long Island Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, known as the Long Island VOAD. This is a national model. There's a state board that we sit on as well, and we run a coalition of nonprofits and government agencies working collaboratively on disaster planning, disaster response, and mitigation. The Long Island VOAD works with governmental and nonprofit partners alike to ensure the planning and implementation of life-saving measures around sheltering, volunteer and donations management, and various other facets of disaster work, layering in the ongoing lessons learned from the pandemic response and this long-term planning. PSEG Long Island supports this work, but is much more supportive than just from a funding perspective. PSEG is a logistical partner and a program partner in the nonprofit sector, working closely with human service agencies to build mechanisms for disaster planning. In fact, in anticipation of the storm, we hosted a convening in early August in which the Senior Emergency Managing Planning Coordinator for PSEG Long Island collaborated in sharing critical preparedness information with CEOs from across Nassau and Suffolk County, in conjunction with the Offices of Emergency Management in Nassau and Suffolk County, as well as the American Red Cross. This information reached hundreds of essential human service employees and CEOs before the storm took place. It is because of these partnerships and these deep community roots of trust and collaboration, really, that the nonprofit sector is not left stunned by crisis and is rather able to quickly mobilize across a variety of circumstances, most recently the current public health disaster. PSEG Long Island support extends beyond disaster in its traditional definition and has worked with us to improve access for low-income Long Islanders who need assistance with costs. They've worked with us on understanding from a human service perspective and rethinking what's called PICO operations, which stands for Post-Emergency Canvassing Operations, which is essentially check-ins on people who are most susceptible following a natural disaster. I felt compelled to speak today because our ability to be resilient as a region to harden our infrastructure, not only in terms of power lines and technology, but also in terms of what we now so understand as a society to be essential work. To be able to continue to do that in moments of crisis, this really matters too. And this type of preparedness has life and death consequences and makes the most vulnerable members of our region exceptionally exposed. It is why ensuring that the human services sector is prepared, that those providing emergency food, for example, mental health support, substance abuse support for victims of domestic violence, victims of child abuse, those needing medical care, or so many of the other most critical services that make a difference for Long Island, this has to be a critical objective. This is what PSEG Long Island stewards and makes possible for hundreds of organizations and thereby thousands of Long Islanders. It has made the difference. So I wanted to share that today, and I thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective. Next, we're going to hear from Samuel Chu. Mr. Chu, are you available?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can. You're up. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm Samuel Chu. Most people know me as Sammy. I am a CEO of Edgewise Energy. A lot of people listening in also know I wear a number of different hats, including as one of Rebecca's board members at the Health and Welfare Council. I've interfaced with LIPA and PSEG in many different capacities over the years, as a former public official, currently as a clean energy developer, and as an electrical contractor, and I've also interfaced extensively with them as a regional advocate and board member of various Long Island-based nonprofits. It's also worth noting that I was one of the lead officials for Suffolk County during the response and recovery to Superstorm Sandy. And I was actually the second person to give official statements to the Moreland Commission that was a precursor to the LIPA Reform Act. And to my knowledge, I think I still hold the distinction of organizing the largest mass electrical inspection in Long Island history, until it's disputed by someone else. I'm glad to give up that distinction, by the way. And I wanted to share I want to share as much as I could from those different, all those different hats and vantage points that I've had the benefit of my view of PSEG. They've been a partner as a clean energy advocate and industry representative. And so many, I wouldn't even begin to be able to count how many initiatives that I've been able to work with PSEG on over the last few years since they've been had charge of the system, and everything ranging from broad policy and goals to minutia details on the Utility 2.0 offerings. It's been mentioned many times that we have an electric grid that is complicated and requires a lot of consideration. And certainly, it's evident from this hearing that response is one of them. And that doesn't end at just storm response or running the system on a day-to-day basis. Transitioning our utility to a clean energy utility is nothing if not complex. And PSEG has been extremely attentive to that on many fronts. As a former public official, as soon as they took over, I have to say, it was immediate and noticeable difference. Their attentiveness to constituent matters, and they were always responsive, and I will always appreciate that. And that was whether it was a big event or a small event for just a single constituent or a single homeowner concern. Now, as a community advocate, and you've heard this from others, but I think it's important, as others have mentioned, to add into context. I serve on boards and other organizations with PSEG representatives, and it's always telling, how people act and what they do when people aren't looking. And I have to say, whether it's dealing with even someone at the service level or dealing with representatives I serve with on community initiatives, their intention, their passion is there. I have to say that they all act with the intent of being, unqualified regional stewards on so many different issues, and I am grateful to have the opportunity to work with them. In all these iterations, I have to say, PSEG has been a good partner. Now, I know that, this was certainly a big event, a storm event, and there were certainly failures. But I think the past week, if it's taught us anything, temperance and thoughtfulness is important as we consider the decisions that are made, particularly ones as important as this that impact repairs. And although these issues need to be addressed, I want to point out that, it's very easy to suggest nuclear options and full restarts and large wholesale reformations. But it's not easy to implement those. And I could say that as someone who's worked at, at very, a large governmental organization, and also someone who knows the impact of that as a business owner. So I would just encourage the PSC, the LIPA board, that as they go forward, they take all of these things into consideration, including all of these things that I think are important to add to the context, and ultimately remember that the service to the ratepayers is critical, and that's who we're serving, not the mob. So thank you very much, and I will take time to thank you for your service to Local 3. I'm also a former Local 3 member. That's how I got my start. And say hello to Mr. Erickson for me, special counsel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see a Local 3 guy made good. Next up, we're going to have Eric Weltman, and then Lee Silberman, then, Rebecca already spoke, and then Neela Lackel. So Eric Weltman, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. You're up.
Wonderful. My name is Eric Weltman, and I'm a New York-based organizer with Food and Water Watch, a nonprofit environmental organization. We're here to send a message to Governor Cuomo and his administration. Long Island deserves, Long Island needs a publicly owned, controlled, and managed power authority. It's time to establish new standards for accountability, equity, resilience, and democracy in our energy systems, and to create an institution that's equipped to meet these standards, and one that will prevent climate catastrophe by moving the region off fossil fuels and transition Long Island to solar and wind power. The time has come for the Long Island Power Authority to end its contract with PSEG Long Island and to finally end decades of failed public-private partnerships that put profit over people, just as we also need to give the boot to American Water on Long Island. Long Island has been repeatedly battered by storms such as Isaias, the intensity and the frequency of which are heightened by climate change. Climate change is an existential threat to Long Island, creating an urgent need to move off fossil fuels. We must stop transporting and burning fracked gas. Public power is the means by which we can ensure that Long Island fulfills our legal and moral obligation to transition to 100% clean renewable energy. Food and Water Watch concludes with our call to Governor Cuomo. Now is the time, now is our moment to reimagine LIPA, end corporate control and abuse of our energy systems, and realize the benefits of public power and full municipalization, real accountability, reliable service, affordable power, and a transition off fossil fuels. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. We'll see how wonderful the evening is going to be. Check in a couple hours and see if we're still here. Next up is Lee Silberman, And Lee Silberman, if you are on, you're up. If you're joining us by phone, please hit *3 and raise your hand, and we will bring you into the forum. Lee Silberman from Habitat for Humanity.
I do not see anyone new with their hand up.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Neela Lackel from the American Red Cross. Neela Lackel. Neela, if you're there, please.
Hi. Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Okay?
welcome. We can hear you. Yes.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. I am also here to talk a little bit more about the relationship we have with PSEG and how we have seen PSEG Long Island support the work of the American Red Cross as well as the needs of our community. The American Red Cross is committed to helping communities prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters ranging from house fires to blizzards and hurricanes. PSEG Long Island has been a vital partner in this endeavor by supporting many of the programs and services we offer in New York and across the tri-state region. This includes preparing communities through our home fire campaign, support to ensure key training of disaster volunteers, and participating in community awareness and education efforts. PSEG Long Island actively supports our work to prepare communities across the island. Every 8 minutes, the American Red Cross responds to an emergency. The most common disaster is not a hurricane or tornado, it's a home fire. We have seen the devastation firsthand that home fires can cause for families, and that's why we launched the Sound the Alarm Save a Life program, where trained Red Cross volunteers visit area homes to install free smoke alarms and provide fire safety education to Long Island residents. Since its inception, PSEG Long Island has strongly supported this program. Every month prior to the pandemic, our teams joined forces to visit communities to ensure hundreds of Long Island residents received working smoke alarms and critical preparedness information. The PSEG Long Island employees who join our volunteers for this effort are truly committed to supporting these families. PSEG Long Island also generously provided LED light bulbs to the families, helping to build not only more resilient communities, but more environmentally friendly and energy efficient homes. PSEG Long Island, pardon me, is a true partner in our efforts to prepare and support communities. At the start of the historic 2020 hurricane season, representatives from PSEG Long Island joined us and other government and community partners for our annual press conference to raise awareness around the importance of hurricane preparedness for Long Island residents, especially during this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. Throughout the year, PSEG Long Island also joins us for tabletop exercises and other planning activities to ensure that we can provide shelter, food, health, and mental health services to help families and entire communities in their greatest moments of need. PSEG Long Island also supports the Red Cross's work to help military families. The oldest line of our mission, Service to the Armed Forces, helps military members throughout every stage of their career, from enlistment onward. PSEG Long Island supports efforts at our local Veterans Administration hospitals across the island, creating a more welcoming space for veterans through construction and beautification projects throughout the year. One truly inspiring moment we shared was in November of 2019, when, as a part of their week-long salute to veterans, PSEG Long Island employees helped to clean out the home and property of a veteran who needed some extra support, truly going the extra mile to help a member of America's greatest generation. We are grateful to count PSEG Long Island as a partner in all of our efforts and for their continued support and commitment to the Long Island community, and certainly to the Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering.
All right, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
you. Next up, what we're going to see is Lee Silberman on the forum. If Lee Silberman is there, please let us know. If you're calling in, hit *3 and it will raise your hand. Xenia, do we have any chance of Lee Silberman?
There was a hand raised, but they have lowered it, so I'm going to assume it is not Mr. Silberman.
Okay, so next we're going to go to Ryan Madden from the Long Island Progressive Coalition. And after Ryan Madden, we have Robert Fonte from the Suffolk County Alliance Chambers and Gina Folletti, also from the Suffolk County Alliance Chambers. So Ryan Madden, are you with us?
Currently, no hands are raised.
All right.
Or no new hands.
No new hands. Okay. All right, if we don't think that Mr. Madden is with us, we'll move on to Robert Fonte. Robert Fonte, are you with us? Okay. And if Robert Fonte is not with us, Gina Folletti. And again, if you're calling in, you need to hit *3. So we will see it as a raised hand, and we'll bring you into the forum. Okay, we're going to move forward. The next three individuals are individuals. They don't have organizational affiliations that I'm aware of. They are Brandon Arias, Chris Braglia, and Corey Olson. Brandon Arias, Chris Braglia, Corey Olson. Are either any of you here with us on the forum?
Someone is on the telephone. I will unmute them so they may go ahead and speak.
All right.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. Welcome. What's your name?
My name is Brandon Arias.
Brandon. All right, Brandon, welcome. You're up.
Thank you. I've been working for the utility for 16 plus years. I've started in the utility under Keyspan, then National Grid, and now PSEG Long Island Electric Service Department as a proud IBW Local 1049 member. I'd like to share one of my experiences during the tropical storm, Isaias. On the 5th day of the storm, my storm partner and I were responding to a transformer outage on McDermott Road in Rockville Center. When we arrived, we found one section of primary, 2 sections of secondary, 5 ripped down service drops underneath a couple of downed trees. Customers came out of their homes and were visibly upset. This type of job would be dispatched to a line crew of 4 or more linemen. I contacted my dispatch office, but there weren't any crews immediately available. My partner and I reassessed the situation and formulated a plan to restore power to the customers any way we could. We worked in the dark and pouring rain. At one point, dispatch had to pull my partner off the job to respond to an emergency fire call the next town over, while I kept working. As the hours passed, customers observing the work from inside their homes went from being irate to profoundly grateful. I bring this experience to your attention, not because it's unique, but because it's commonplace during storm restoration. And the test of companies and workers isn't just how you operate when things go well, but when things go wrong. When our OMS system failed, I witnessed firsthand our control centers and packed like sardines, handwriting and dispatching jobs to service personnel like myself, all while phones and alarms blazed in the background. We have to fix those underlying problems, but I also believe that if folks knew how thousands of people work to overcome these difficulties during the storm, they would realize that other parts of our response, the human parts, responded well under the circumstances. I feel fortunate to work for PSEG, knowing firsthand the obstacles we faced during that time. I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter again, and that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service and all the hard work that you do. I had previously called Chris Braglia, Corey Olson. Are either of them on the call in the forum? Xenia, are there any hands raised?
There is a hand raised in a caller, so I just unmuted the person. You have been unmuted.
Good evening. Welcome. What's your name?
Okay, they put their hand down, so I will mute them again. And there's another one here.
Okay, who's the next one?
Hello?
Hello, what's your name?
Caller?
Hello?
Caller, hello?
Hello, what's your name?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. What's your name?
Okay, hi, this is Eric Bray. I apologized for the earlier. My internet wasn't working properly.
That's all right. I'm glad you came back to us. You top marks for persistence.
Thank you very much.
You're up.
So my name is Eric Bray. I am the Vice President of All Reliable Services. We represent a significant portion of the tree trimming on Long Island. And I would like to add that my employees are not only Long Island residents, they are also IBEW 1049. So working in the line clearance tree industry, my professional expertise is inclusive of cycle trim, tree removal, and tree maintenance on electric distribution and transmission rights of ways. Sharing my industry experience will help to certify the perspective that I offer. Starting in this industry in 1987 as a flagger, which is the lowest entry-level position, since then I have worked every position up to my current position as Vice President of All Reliable Services. In my 34-year career, I've had the privilege to witness the many changes to the vegetation side of providing safe, reliable electric service to the customers' dwellings for over 120 electric utility companies in 33 states. Personally, I have been responsible for the tree work in a management position for a total of 25 years, exceeding over 200,000 miles of tree work on the wires, growing 6,000 to 10,000 miles a year going forward. For the countrywide industry in general, in the 80s and most of the 90s, it was more reactive program working primarily on problem circuits. Today in 2021, we use a complete vegetation management or integrated vegetation management system to provide a cycle maintenance program that is designed to remove any tree, growth, or hazard tree that has a high probability to cause an outage. At any time within the cycle length, the technical training, implementation, work process, and verification process at LIPA and PSEG Long Island is the absolute highest quality used in the industry without a doubt. And would like to share my industry expert opinion why. When PSEG Long Island took over, they implemented significant changes to the aging electric grid and improved the customer outage frequency indexes. The outdated tree maintenance program and replaced it with the absolute best in industry. The tree maintenance procurement focus and strategy, making contractors more responsible and engaged. A line clearance tree QA/QC inspection process that is absolute best in the industry. Community fact and learning of why and how we do line clearance tree trimming. Customer satisfaction for line clearance tree work completed has tripled. Post-trim surveys and interviews is what I'm referring to. Communication with local town officials regarding line clearance tree trimming, which has tripled, as well as increased satisfaction. PSEG Long Island demands to contractors for the highest tech and state-of-the-art equipment available to the industry must be on their system. The days prior to Tropical Storm Isaias, I received a demand for off-island cruise support from top levels of PSEG Long Island. We operate crews in 9 total states with 24 electric utilities, and I must say, of the 6 that asked for crews, PSEG Long Island was the first to ask, and that was quite impressive. ARS provided working crews to support the Tropical Storm Isaias in 3 different states. The 212 total crews were supported by 540 line clearance tree trimming personnel working for our existing customers. To ensure the crews were highly focused on restoration and safety, a series of meetings within my company were held, as well as having various safety departments, equipment department, and administrative department representatives on the ground for us. With that in place, and with 100% confidence, I can state that I know everything my crews were doing, from the job ticket flow produced on an ongoing hourly basis, the fully complete status. What I witnessed from the crew management and ticket flow from the PSEG Long Island staff was one of the most professional and well-managed storm events I have provided crews for. Communication and follow-up was absolutely best in industry. There was never any downtime. Jobs were getting finished at a rapid pace. Of the 212 total crews support, I had 139 people supporting the restoration at PSEG Long Island. What is being reported, said, and documented in various outlets does not match the facts of how well managed the storm was. The management from top to bottom was highly engaged, and the Isaias storm restoration management is in fact the best storm I have helped support. Based on the hundreds of storms I've worked since 1987. Additionally, I would like to add a statement from my top field manager, Chris Soria, who is managing resources on the ground for the restoration effort, and I quote, "As we know, Storm Isaias was very challenging for PSEG Long Island. It affected more customers than anticipated. I have worked for many utilities and have seen how different departments run their storm response. In my opinion, only one sticks out is the Vegetation Management Department of PSEG Long Island. Vegetation management has surpassed my expectations not only as a contractor, but as a customer also. I have worked hand in hand and know all the PSEG Long Island contractors and PSEG Long Island supervisors who work very hard to complete their storm response. I have supervised many crews and interacted with tons of customers and received positive feedback also. The challenges of Storm Isaias were not due to the vegetation department as they worked around the clock removing limbs from the lines. Crews were brought in from all over, and every crew on Long Island worked day and night to clear the damaged areas. I will continue to assist and support PSEG Long Island for their efforts and a daily work for years to come." Unquote. So please consider my I have worked hundreds of storms in various utilities and have identified PSEG Long Island as a very rare, well-managed group that is in fact many years ahead of most utilities for vision and work management. And I must add, you know, in all of my years, I've worked the investor-owned utilities, I've worked the town-owned utilities. You know, I would recommend don't reinvent the wheel. What PSEG Long Island has in place is rare and top shelf countrywide. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you for your persistence in sticking with us. I'm glad we got you to be able to speak. So I'm going to read off the names of the individuals who signed up to speak. And if any of you are on the call, please hit *3 and we will bring you in if you've called. And if you're on via computer, let us raise your hand via the computer and we will bring you in.
Someone does have their, I'm sorry, someone does have their hand up. I'm not sure if it's the name that you called prior.
Okay, let's see who that is first before I read names.
Okay.
Hear me now.
Great, who's this?
We hear you.
Hi, good evening. This is Chris Braglia.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Special Counsel.
So you're up. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you again, Special Counsel Landsman. Again, my name is Chris Braglia. I live in Massapequa with my wife and 2 boys, and I've worked for the power companies here on Long Island for the past 29 years. In my current role at PSEG Long Island, I manage contract management, which is the group that's responsible for paying services contracted by the transmission and distribution operations, including those from off-island contractors. But like every other single Long Island employee at PSEG, I also have a storm role. And during Tropical Storm Isaias, I worked 16-hour days at the Bethpage State Park staging site. And my role was helping to equip off-island crews with repair materials, fuel, food, water, and ice that they needed before they headed out to their jobs. It was an enormously busy time for our team, and myself, along with several others, left our families at home to manage on their own without power. However, even after the problems emerged with the outage management system, I did not see anyone on our team lose a step at that site. Serving the customer is in our DNA, and every single one of us will answer that call when a storm comes. We are Long Islanders. We are ratepayers with the same concerns, and we are woven into the fabric of the community, both on and off the job, thanks to the company culture that PSEG Long Island has brought to us since 2014. Along with improving the operations and the customer focus, PSEG Long Island has encouraged us to get out in the community and make a difference. My group has planted trees for Earth Day, packed food at Island Harvest, and supported various other causes like the March of Dimes and the American Cancer Society, just to name a few. And our predecessor companies, we did not feel like we were part of the community. The difference with PSEG Long Island is night and day. Now, the OMS issue was a major swing and miss. It's not arguable, but it is fixable. And I think the company is doing what it needs to do to right the ship. More importantly, I don't think the employees have ever lost their focus on taking care of the customer first while being safe. I'm proud of what we've accomplished at PSEG Long Island over the past 7 years. I want to continue on that path, and I believe that we have the right focus to get there. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so I'm going to read the names of the individuals who signed up. And if anyone raises your hand, if you're here, please indicate either if you're calling in by hitting *3, or if you have if you're in via the computer, just hit the raise your hand function, and we will bring you in. Corey Olson, Doug Dreyer.
We do have Corey.
We have Corey. Great, Corey.
Yes, we
you're
have
up.
Corey.
And let me just read the next 3 names so people are prepared. Doug Dreyer, Ellen Meister, Enrique Morales. But let's go to Corey Olson.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Special Counsel Landsman and Commissioner Berman. My name is Corey Olson. I'm an emergency service specialist at PSEG and a member of IBW 1049. I think much of what I'm going to say is probably going to echo what Brandon Arias said, but I'll try to keep it brief, and maybe I can add some additional perspective. I started with the electric utility in 2005 with Keyspan. Prior to that, I worked as a lineman for the outside contractors. And I'd like to share my experience at Tropical Storm Isaias. Just as context, I'll quickly explain my role. As an electric service specialist, we work a 24-hour a day 7-day-a-week rotating shift alone. We work as first responders on the system. We generally will make the small repairs, temporary repairs that we can do on our own. Larger jobs we refer to a crew. Our jobs are dispatched by the Electric Service Department. They also have the role of coordinating switching and providing all the info and the details that we need to do our jobs. As I came to work that Tuesday, it became apparent pretty quick that this was a storm of a magnitude we really haven't seen since Superstorm Sandy. Immediately, the jobs we're being dispatched to were very large-scale jobs, entire circuits out with multiple damaged areas along these circuits. Pretty quickly, we began to see some of the computer problems that you've been hearing so much about. Really, without missing a beat, the people working in the Electric Service Department that dispatch our jobs switched gears and immediately were working off paper maps. They were printing jobs out on paper, photographing them with their phones, texting them to us, so we had all the information we need. I can't say enough about the people working in the inside dispatching these jobs. They have what's probably the most stressful job at the company at times, and they handle it professionally. They do it coolly, and when we call in, it's a lot of times under duress, and they maintain a calm demeanor and give us the information we need immediately. They really had to take on additional roles in this storm, and I can't say enough about them. From my perspective in the field, the scope of our job changed immediately. As Brandon said, as the scope of the storm expanded and crews were dispatched to jobs, it became pretty apparent that we were going to have to start taking on a lot bigger jobs, often by ourselves, often at night. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge in a lot of ways, not only hindered by dark, by at times the extreme heat, by understandably frustrated customers. And a lot of that came from what we've heard in the communication problems. In addition to the jobs, we were also fielding customer complaints with the difficulties in communication to the company. We were being approached by customers on a regular basis, and while we couldn't always leave a job to go attend to their outage, we were taking down their information and relaying that information into the service action department so that their jobs were taken care of and they had a name and a face to the company. In addition to that, and these challenges that I've just spoken of, there was a lot of other pressures on us. I can't emphasize enough how much of an impact sometimes the negative press that we were receiving had. We're all aware of the attacks on social media. And in addition to that, we saw a number of serious accidents that are always taken very seriously, especially by linemen like myself. And, as if that wasn't enough, well, none of us exist in a bubble. We're all Long Islanders first. Many of us were facing damage to our own homes. We're facing power outages at home. And that's to say nothing of living through it. In conclusion, I think I'd like to share my overall experience of the storm, and it really wasn't one of failure. It was really an experience of seeing my coworkers really come to life amongst enormous challenges to their families, to their coworkers, to their communities, and I really feel like every single one of them not only rose to the challenge but really excelled. And I think it's important to note, and I appreciate everyone's kind words with regards to the workforce. And that's really about all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm glad you stuck around. We appreciated hearing your perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have, I understand that Doug Dreyer is ready to be brought into the forum. Mr. Dreyer, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome. You're up.
Great. Thanks very much. I'll be as brief as I can. I've been sitting here on this terminal working remote from 7 o'clock this morning, and you're between me and dinner, so I'll try to be as succinct as I can be. I represent probably a very unique position on this call in the matter that I am the end user. I'm an individual customer that receives the service. I'm not a contractor, I'm not a senator, I'm not a councilman, I'm the end user. So I lost power on the 4th, August 4th. What's interesting about my situation is my wife had just come home from Cornell Hospital after being there a month with critical care. She arrived home and we set up and we said, okay, she has special needs, but we can handle it. So August 4th, power goes out in the afternoon. I fired up the generator, which I've had installed for a while. We were out for 2 weeks after Sandy, so we certainly know we needed a generator to survive. 4 days into the outage, day after day after PSEG, on 8/4, they said, you'll be back on 8/6 through their texts. On 8/5, they said, you'll be back at 8/7. On August 6th, they said, well, you'll be back on the 8th. On 8/7, they came back and said, well, all right, maybe it's 8/9. Had we known what would really happen, or if they had been honest and said we're totally out of control, we probably would have gone back to the hospital. Or we would have moved to family members. But since they were totally out of control and dishonest, even though there were efforts, as mentioned on this call, well-meaning efforts of some of the hard hat guys that were trying to do the right thing, the mismanagement was catastrophic. On Sunday morning, we finally had the first lineman crew show up, which was out of state. We had 4 different out-of-state lineman crews show up. They were all excellent guys trying to do their best. They had no assessment from PSEG in terms of what was out. They had no way to communicate or do turnover between the teams as they came in and left in terms of what the previous team had experienced in our grid. They had no map of the grid. Each of the teams had to come in and start from scratch to figure out the sources and how it was wired. We have a very complex environment here, and there was no grid map and no turnover. So each one had to start from scratch again and again. We formed a civic team of sorts and met them every time they would come in, the different teams, to give them what we had conjured up from the previous team that had given us a turnover because there was no vehicle to do that through a formal communication mechanism with PSEG. We didn't come back online till the 10th or the 11th. The only live person that gave me any response or comfort level was Judy Bosworth. She responded to my email in 2 minutes. She reached out to PSEG, she did everything she could, but it became clear that this was a catastrophic failure in management by PSEG. Yes, they're better than LIPA. They put in the large poles on Northern Boulevard. They fortified the backbone. But the last mile, which is the most important part in the community, they had no idea, no grid, no map to provide these out-of-state teams who showed up and said to us, the homeowners, okay, what's out? Where's the problem? We said, you have to be kidding. Now, this is factual situation. If anybody wants to take it offline, I'll go through it with them. But the real issue here is ownership. There is no ownership in PSEG, a named live person that owns my community for the last mile to tell me what is wrong. There's no reason they can't pair up 2 people for 7A to 7P, 7P to 7A, where you have a live body that knows your complex local grid, that experienced previous storms to know where the outages happen. There is no data analysis of previous failures. Everybody walks in from out of state and says, I'm here, what's the problem? They don't know what failed before. They didn't get a turnover from the previous team. It's a nightmare. So for us, one of the gentlemen on the call was patting ourselves on the back that we have such a great record, and we're horrible. These out-of-state linemen who I got very friendly with, one gentleman said, I've been doing this for 20 years. This is the most chaotic situation I have ever been in. Each of them repeated something very similar. They said about the maintenance and trimming. There was another gentleman on that said, we do such great maintenance and trimming. He said, we can't even see the poles, much less the lines. He said, wherever we go, you can look down the line and see a 4x4 square that's eye shot to the next pole, so you can see if anything's touching the wires. We can't even see the poles in this community. So all these people that are patting themselves on the back that want to maintain their contracts with PSEG, pardon my French, it's all a bunch of bullshit. I want a name of somebody that owns my community and the last mile that I can talk to know if my wife should stay home or go back to the hospital. And without that ownership, it's just time to buy a generator. So everyone here knows that if you really have a critical situation, forget what you're being told by anyone. Go and pay the $10,000 and get a generator hooked up, because it's the only way to succeed. When my natural gas generator went out, I had to, 4 days into the storm, borrow 2 gas-operated smaller generators. I built the umbilical cords and hot wired them into my split unit air conditioning, so my wife had air conditioning, and put the other one back in so I had refrigerators for her nourishment. There was no help. There was no live body from PSEG. The only one that responded to me was Judy Bosworth and her team. So I'll leave you with that. I know it's a unique opinion because I'm a user, but that's the user and the frustration coming from the user. If you want to fix this, have somebody own my relationship from my community with PSEG. I thank you for the time, and I apologize that I'm a bit abrupt, but I've been on this line for 12 hours today, and you're between me and dinner, and I'm not a friendly guy when I'm hungry. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate your waiting around to tell us about your experience, and you gave it to us straight, and I appreciate it very much. Okay, next we have, is Ellen Meister on the call? Ellen Meister, if you're there, please raise your hand or hit *3. If not, I believe Enrique Morales is available. Mr. Morales, are you available? Xenia, is anyone's hand raised?
So we do have 2 callers with their hands raised. Let me unmute them and see if either one of them are Ms. Meister. Hello? Caller, you're unmuted. Hello, caller? Okay, I will mute them again. And there is another caller. Hello, caller, you're unmuted. Okay, I'm going to unmute Mr. Morales then.
Okay.
Mr. Morales, you are unmuted.
Hi, yes, this is Enrique. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome. You're up.
All right, great. Hello. Thank you, Special Counsel Landsman and Commissioner Berman, for giving me a chance to speak here. My name is Enrique Morales. I'm a Long Island-born resident. I live in Bayshore. I'm a Navy veteran. I served 9 years active duty and 15 years reserve. And I'm also an employee of PSEG Long Island. However, right now I'm making a statement as a private citizen and a customer. I do feel for the last gentleman on the call, and so it's unfortunate. I would like to focus on the community outreach from our PSEG. Like I said, PSEG Long Island is a positive influence in the community. And in my 2-decade career with Long Island Utilities, it's the most customer-focused company I've worked. And I know that sounds a little ironic after the last gentleman was on, but from working in the company, I can assure you that we make every effort, to make the exception. I was hired by Keyspan after getting out of active duty in 1999. When National Grid purchased Keyspan, that was during Keyspan days. When National Grid purchased Keyspan, the culture of the company, changed accordingly. But the change certainly didn't compare to what happened when PSEG Long Island was formed, and the focus on customers increased dramatically. The company reached out to the community by creating affinity groups that help us understand and interact with diverse populations of customers all across Long Island. As a veteran, I had the opportunity to join an employee business resource group, and that let me help local veterans at a scale that I hadn't been able to before. So since 2014, I've worked closely with different local organizations like the New York State Home for Veterans, the Veterans Place in Yaphank. I've worked with the Veterans Beacon House General Needs, Purple Heart Foundation, and numerous other ones. We also work with local posts of the VFW, the American Legion, and we've also arranged several events where we help individuals. As a matter of fact, one of the earlier callers had spoken about an event in November 2019, and I was there with that and our group of veterans. PSEG Long Island doesn't dictate where we direct our efforts. We are a group of employees within the company. We vote on what projects we undertake. Projects have ranged from Far Rockaway to Riverhead, all across the island, the service territory. The company culture empowers us to make a difference for the communities we serve by giving us the time and a small budget to work with. This company does care about its customers. It's full of employees that go the extra mile, as we've heard some previous customers there. It's part of our culture. Myself, during Isaias, I worked back-to-back 16-hour days, like all the other employees you've heard on this call. Even when I was off duty driving home, I would find damage on the way home, and I would call it in. Make sure that it was corrected, and I followed up on it the next day. So the company has spoken about how it's fixing the issues that emerged from Isaias that we hadn't seen prior to that. At the same time, I do ask that you please consider the positive changes that PSEG Long Island has brought to the customers and employees alike over the past 7 years. And I can say, from the bottom of my heart that I am proud to work for PSEG. And thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service to our country and to our community. All right, I'm going to read off some names. If one of these names is yours, please raise your hand and let us know that you're here. If you're calling in, if you're on a phone, hit *3. If you're on the computer, we'll see your name, but you can please use the raise hand function on the computer. Ellen Meister, Jamie Shand, Janet Lavin, Melissa Benane, Michael Menser, Michael Garant, Nicholas Cassius, Keith Forrester. Xenia, do we have any hands raised?
We have Jamie on the line.
Great. Jamie Shand, you're up.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jamie Shan. I'm a proud member of Local 1049 and an employee of PSEG. I've worked for the utility for 33 years, 32 as a lineman. I have now worked for 3 separate employers, and I can say without reservation that PSEG has put more money and resources into our core values, which are safety training, reliability, and customer satisfaction than any of their predecessors. 2 points I'd like to make from my experience over the last 7 years. I've noticed how much more robust the system is, and those smaller type wind events that we have, like 30 to 50 mile an hour winds. In the past, we'd be working those storms, but the last couple of years that has not occurred. I did some research to make sure this information is more empirical than anecdotal. Overall system reliability has improved 26%. And on the storm hardened circuits that you heard everyone talk about, there are 45% fewer outages. This is significant, to say the least. My second point I'd like to make is something I read in a Newsday article, that we are too autocratic. This has not been my experience at all. A group of union members, which I'm a part of, meet with Dan Eichhorn and John O'Connell, Vice President of Operations, at a minimum every 2 weeks. The decision-making on their part seems more autonomous than autocratic. I've experienced them signing off on large-scope projects that would benefit the company and the customers, and then they come to fruition. I would like to close my remarks by saying, please don't judge us by this one storm where we had computer failures that tied our hands. Look at the whole body of work, and I think you'll see this partnership is what's best for the people of Long Island. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service. Next, do we have any other hands raised, Xenia? I'm going to call out some names again. Ellen Meister, Janet Lavin, Melissa Benane, Michael Menser, Michael Garant, Nicholas Cassius, Keith Forrester.
We have Melissa Benane on the line.
Great.
I will unmute her now.
Great. Ms. Benet, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, God. Hear you, Melissa Benet?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can hear you. Are you Melissa Benet?
Ms. Benet?
Yes,
Melissa Benet?
I'm right here.
Okay, you're up. Welcome.
Hi, I'm sorry about that. My name is Melissa Benane, and I've been working for the utility for the last 16 years, where I'm a payment processing clerk. I've lived on Long Island all my life. I'm originally from Bayshore, but I reside in Deer Park now, and I've been here for the last 14 years. I'm not just a utility worker, I'm a customer as well. And the people that I talk to every day aren't numbers, they're my neighbors. My storm duty is to call customers who have life-sustaining equipment. Typically, when I make this call, the customer is very appreciative to hear a familiar voice. They know who I am because most storms, I'm part of a group that makes these calls. During the last storm, I called a customer who lived in Smithtown. She was an elderly woman, but the person who picked up the phone was not the party record. It was the daughter. She actually lived in Manorville, and she wanted to check on her mother. I advised her not to take the trip, like we'll try and send somebody to see what's going on at the house because she was worried because she couldn't reach her mother by the phone. So I reached out to our manager who made a few calls and had someone go to the mother's house to do a safety check. They found out that the mother was next door, ended up calling the daughter and letting her know that her mother was okay. So they took a scary situation and made it better. So I just did this because I hope someone would do this for me. I wanted to share this story with you today so you see that the workers out there every day take it personally because it's our community as well. And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experience. Next, do we have any hands raised, Senior? Anyone
Yes,
next?
we do.
Who's that?
We have Michael Durant. I will unmute him.
Great.
Hi, I'm Mike Durant. Can you
Hi,
guys hear me?
you're up. Welcome.
I'd like to thank Special Counsel Landsman and Commissioner Berman for the opportunity to speak. A little about myself. My name is Michael Durant. I'm a Long Island Electric customer, PSEG field employee, and a 21-year member of IBW 1049. I spent 5 years as an outside line contractor, 2 years in transmission operations, and 14 years as an emergency service specialist. Just want to speak to our dedication as a workforce on Long Island. We are out there 24/7 every day, putting the lights on for Long Islanders, even when there's no storm event. Isaias was a storm that caused significant damage to the electrical system. The amount which we haven't seen since Sandy. The amount of trees down and the amount of damage, it was enough that we knew in the field, we knew that it was going to take many days to get the lights back on. We're a workforce that's dedicated to getting the lights on for our customers. And I just want to share my personal story from that storm. While the storm was actively upon us, we were out, my coworkers and I, in the field working, trying to minimize outages to areas. We were getting blocked in on streets by fallen trees, broken poles, down wires. While we were out there working, I received a message from my wife and a couple of my neighbors that an 80-foot oak tree fell on my house. I couldn't be home to help my family because I was here working. I worked for 11 days straight, restoring electric to our customers while leaving my wife and kids at home to deal with what we considered emergency at the time. This is the career path I chose. Myself, and many others have chosen, and our families make a sacrifice along with us when these events happen. Just wanted to finish by saying thank you to the council and thank you to the LIPA board for acknowledging the workers out there in the field.
you very much, and thank you for the work you do in our community. Xenia, do we have anyone next?
Yes, we do. I'd like to ask everyone, if you've spoken, to please lower your hand. If you're on the computer, lower your hand. If you're on the telephone, please dial star 3. And I believe we have Nicholas next.
Great.
You're unmuted.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Cassius.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome. You're up.
Thank you. Special Counsel Landsman, members of the commission, good evening, and thank you for permitting me to speak. I'm representing the Museum of American Armor, a state-chartered, not-for-profit educational destination that uses its historic military vehicles as a teaching environment for a new generation of Americans. My goal this evening is to put the role of PSEG not only in its support of organizations such as ours, but its role on Long Island as a whole into a broader context that needs to be considered as this commission looks at its past performance and future ambitions. Across Long Island, PSEG has put its charitable efforts to work on behalf of numerous not-for-profits that range from combating breast cancer to providing food for those facing hunger as a result of this pandemic, from Habitat for Humanity to our very own Museum of American Armor. As a lifelong resident of Amityville, I cannot think of a better utility that has been more deeply committed to the region it serves than PSEG, Long Island. In addition to financial support, the large employee base volunteers on every level and every manner possible to assist the not-for-profit community throughout the Bi-County region. Now, while I am aware of its shortcomings in the previous storm, I would respectfully argue that we would be inflicting needless harm on our region if our only means of fixing the problem requires the dismantlement or replacement of PSEG, Long Island, so that we may start over. This would be akin to dismantling the MTA because a snowstorm has stalled trains on the main line, or disbanding the Port Authority because the George Washington Bridge has yet another overturned 18-wheeler. Surely this commission can apply its collective wisdom to finding a more appropriate and effective pathway, which ensures for when the next storm arrives, the PSEG we depend upon so dearly has been made stormproof. I therefore would submit that reinventing how we keep our lights on may not be the most ideal solution. So Special Counsel, on behalf of Lawrence Kadish, our president, Mr. Gary Louie, our vice president, and all of the volunteers here at the Museum of American Armor, I say thank you for letting our voices being heard and our concerns being addressed. I yield the rest of my time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as a former light infantryman, whenever I had a chance to be chauffeured around in an armored vehicle, I really appreciate it. So I'd love to come out and check out your museum and see what you've got. Next is, who do we got next? Xenia?
Ed, we have Ed Petroselli. I will unmute him now.
Oh, wait. Hi, Mr. Petroselli. How are you?
Fine, sir. How are you? First, thank you, Special Councilman Lansman, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ed Petroselli. I'm a Suffolk County homeowner. I'm a lifelong Long Islander, and I've worked for power companies on Long Island alone for over 30 years. I'm also a proud PSEG Long Island employee. A lot of the things I wanted to say have already been covered by others, including Enrique Morales, who I work with very closely with the PSEG Long Island Veterans Group. It's a group that the company supports both financially and allowing us to utilize our time to support vets. And it's something we're very excited about doing and something we love doing. Now, with regard to storm restoration, I just wanted to give my take on it. I've had several positions throughout my career in storm restoration. For those people that have not been involved in anything like that, let me give you my impression of it. It's both exhausting and it's exhilarating at the same time. It's exhausting because we're working 16-hour shifts. And sometimes those shifts can be very physical. So at the end of the day, you're really, really tired. But it's also exhilarating because I have to tell you, there's no better feeling than at the end of working at one particular site, you get the power back on, and you see people come out of their homes, the lights go on. In the summertime, you know that they'll be cool, and in the wintertime, you know that they're going to be warm. It's really a fantastic feeling. During Tropical Storm Isaias, I had several storm rolls, which happens to a lot of us. When you're finished in one area where the work is completed and there's another area that's heavily damaged, they tend to move us on. The first role I had was I was calling customers to verify that their power had been restored. One of the customers I spoke to was a woman who was a nurse working in the hospital treating COVID-19 patients. So you can imagine what her life was like at the time. Here she is, she's working long hours, taking care of people, trying to save lives. And then her mother had passed away a couple of months ago, and the home that her mother had was left vacant. Well, some of the neighbors there had called her and said, well, the lines were sparking in front of and behind her home. So she was concerned about a fire. So during lunchtime, I managed to go from Melville, where I was stationed, out to Levittown, where the home was. Actually made several trips, and I determined that there were no sparking wires and everything was safe. I made sure the lines were clear. Now, I'm not bringing this up to make it seem like I went above and beyond, because I didn't. I'm not going above and beyond when this is something that is typical for the 2,500 PSEG Long Island employees to do. This is just, when we look at people, we don't look at them as customers or somebody that actually writes a check at the end of the month. We actually look at these people as our neighbors, because that's exactly what they are. Now, through the 3 decades I've been working for Lilco, Keyspan Energy, Lifer, and PSEG Long Island, I've had a variety of positions, as I said before. I've had the privilege of working with personnel from both the union and management ranks. And it's been a real pleasure working with the folks from PSEG Long Island, because they're very accessible to us, they listen to us, and they really help us to do our jobs. I'm very proud of my company. We are not perfect. We have admitted to that, but we will improve, and we're definitely committed to that. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. In addition to the names I previously called, there is also signed up is Jennifer Clemente, Raymond Hamburger, and Daniel McGarry. So if either any of those folks are here, please let us know, and we can bring you into the call.
We do have Jennifer Clemente.
Jennifer Clemente. Okay, Ms. Clemente, you're up.
Hi, thank you, Special Counsel Lansman, for the opportunity to. My name is Jennifer. My name is Clemente, and I live in West Islip. I've worked for PSEG Long Island and its predecessors for 25 years. I'm presently a shop steward, and I serve on the executive board of IBEW Local 1049. I'm currently a team lead in the Melville Call Center, although PSEG Long Island's commitment to us and our safety, which is always a top priority, has enabled me to work from my home during the pandemic. When the call comes for us to respond to a storm, we do so without hesitation. I've worked many storms over the 25 years that I've been here. My experiences with PSEG Long Island have been very different. Since 2014, their primary focus has been the safety of our customers and our workers, along with listening to our customers' concerns and working hard to satisfy them. Tropical Storm Isaias was difficult for all Long Islanders. Many of our call center reps had to relocate when our own homes lost power. Seeing 6 years of commitment to the safety that they have, though, we knew that we would be confident to have to report to a PSEG Long Island facility, because we needed to take the necessary precautions to protect our health. We work long shifts during the storm to help our customers. I spoke to one particular customer in particular that stands out in my mind. Her elderly father had a serious medical issue. His generator was nearly out of fuel, and there was downed trees and lines, and that kept him from leaving his home. As with many jobs during the severe storm, the damage required multiple crews to repair. I gave the daughter my email address and my phone number and kept her up to date, and I gave her mother my word that I would do everything I could to help. I worked together with many other departments to get this issue resolved as quickly as I could. The service was restored, and the daughter was in tears because she was so grateful that we all listened and worked so diligently to help her and her family through this very difficult situation. This is a similar story that many of my peers have. We have a commitment to our neighbors and our community to provide them with exceptional service every day, and the storm has not shaken our resolve on that. I speak on behalf of myself and my peers who live and serve Long Island. We take pride in the work that we do every day, and no one can do it better than our workforce. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Xenia, do we have any more hands raised?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Raymond Humberger.
Great. Mr. Humberger?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome. You're up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you, Special Councilman Landsman and Commissioner Berman, for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Ray Homburger, and I'm a longtime Long Islander. I live in Wading River with my wife, Kathy. We've been married for 38 years. I have a daughter who lives in Brooklyn, and I'm a PSEG longtime employee. For the past 40 years, I've worked for the power companies on Long Island dating back to Lilco, and I've held many different positions over the years. My current role is focused on improving customer satisfaction. I should mention I am speaking as a resident of Long Island. I'm not speaking on behalf of the company. I just want to make sure that folks hear what employees do and their dedication to our neighbors here on Long Island. From the day that PSEG Long Island started, those of us who are long-timers saw an immediate change in company culture. We became much more customer-focused. We made investments in areas of need, such as tree trimming, infrastructure hardening, technology, and most of all, safety. Customer service, continuous improvement, reliability, community involvement, and safety. That is who we are. During Isaias, while our outage management system may have failed us, our employees never did. We used cell phones and instant messaging. We traveled in our cars to make up for OMS shortcomings, and we got the job done. Personally, during the storm, as many have mentioned before, we worked 16-hour days, but we didn't actually end our shift when 16 hours were up. During the day, as I learned of various customer issues, often related to folks on life support, I would do whatever I could after hours to assist. For example, one night I left my home at 10 p.m., which incidentally was also without power for 6 days. And I traveled to Patchogue one evening to bring a family ice for their daughter's medication. Another night I traveled to Ronkonkoma to borrow a small generator, then headed to Mount Sinai for an elderly homeowner's issue, and finally to Mastic Beach to provide power for a gentleman on a ventilator. I hooked up all their medical equipment and left them with my personal extension cords and power strip, and ensured the family knew how to operate and refuel that small generator if necessary. It is our company culture to be strongly involved in our communities, to do whatever we can for our neighbors and do what we know is right, help in any way we can. On my own time, outside of work, I'm involved with a number of boards on Long Island. I'm the president of the Board of Directors for Habitat for Humanity of Suffolk County. I'm the vice president of the Moon Jumpers, which is a not-for-profit that assists veterans and children in need across Long Island. And I'm a board member on several other not-for-profits that help our neighbors in need. It is also in our culture to improve. Our employees gave their all to restore our customers as quickly and safely as possible, and we've put in that same effort since to fix the problems revealed by the storm. Nothing will change our resolve to always do the best for our customers, our neighbors. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Xenia, who do we have next?
So we have Daniel McGarry, and I will unmute him now.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Special Councilman Landsman and Commissioner Berman, for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Dan McGarry. I've lived on Long Island since 1968, raised 4 children here, and I'm also a PSE&G Long Island employee. I have been with various electric and gas Long Island utilities service providers since April 4th, 1981, and I retired from National Grid in 2011. I joined the PSEG Long Island team in February 2014, and since that time, I've managed public works, project management, and most recently, the FEMA and Power On storm hardening programs. Some great programs to improve the reliability of on Long Island. As background, I'm planning on retiring March 2021, so my comments today are not about my professional future. They're about what Long Island needs: reliable power and a company that cares about the community.
In my opinion, PSEG Long Island fulfills both of those things better than anyone in my past has. In my 4 decades with utilities, I've worked under many different models and many good leaders with various styles. PSEG Long Island, in my opinion, has been the best and most customer-focused organization that I've worked for, and certainly is what Long Island needs. My experience ranged from digging holes as a laborer for 1049 in 1981 on, to managing construction projects for both gas and electric companies on the island. No other company has had the same end-to-end commitment to satisfying the communities and customers where they're working to improve the system. That commitment to the customer and the community extends to the employee culture at PSEG Long Island Foresters. I have seen unrivaled levels of volunteerism and community presence across our service area. Our employees are all working together to make Long Island a better place to live. PSEG Long Island's leadership has always empowered employees just like me to make decisions and then backed us up. In my opinion, the Long Island ratepayer has never had a team that is as well trained and focused to deliver results, and those results, safe results. I realize that we're here to speak to the storm response following Isaias. Like everyone else at PSEG Long Island, I worked hours until our customers were restored, just as we do for all major weather events. Our customer-focused team has owned the system failures, acknowledged that we did not provide the experience our customers deserve, and immediately began developing solutions. All the while the storm was going on, many workarounds were done to make sure that we accomplished the task of restoring customers as quickly as we possibly could. When we as Long Island look at the past 7 years, we've seen real improvements in reliability, energy delivery, and customer experience. I have heard it time and time again from my neighbors and my children, and all whom still live on Long Island. After 7 years of excellence, it does not make sense to define this great team based on one storm. I'm proud to work for PSEG Long Island, and I'm far from the only longtime utility worker who feels that way. Thank you tonight for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, Xenia, who do we have next? Anyone left?
Okay, so I don't see anyone left, but there is a caller that's had their hand up the whole time. I just want to make sure that that is not someone that we missed. I'm going to unmute that caller.
All right.
As a caller, you'll hear a beep when you're unmuted. If you heard a beep, please speak.
All right, well, we've heard from a lot of people this evening. If you are on this call or either by phone or on the computer, and you have registered to speak and would like to speak and have not yet spoken, please make yourself known. If you are calling, hit *3, and we will see that your hand is raised next to your phone number. If you are on the line on the computer, you can use the raise your hand function, and we will get you in. Is there anybody on this call, whether you registered or not, who would like to speak and has not had an opportunity to speak?
I do have a new hand up. It's Michael McCant. I will unmute him. You've been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's your name?
My name is Michael Marcantonio.
Hey, welcome, Michael. You're up.
In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, the New York State government enacted into law the LIPA Reform Act of 2013, and thus began a dangerous experiment, making Long Island its guinea pig. An experiment testing the proposition that whether a private company, completely unregulated without any significant oversight or competition, with total monopoly power, whose profits derive from ratepayers who must pay the rates, but who have limited to no recourse to challenge those rates, whether such a system could properly administer energy to its customers and protect them from future storms. PSEG gave us that answer. An unregulated private corporation, protected by the government, given monopoly power over the public infrastructure, charged with safeguarding the public interest, is a recipe for abject disaster and failure. But the failure lies not only with PSEG, but with the regulators who allowed that private company to operate freely, without any meaningful oversight. I echo Supervisor Romaine's statements, and yes, I've been on the call since around 4:15, that where was the oversight? LIPA's contention, heard today by CEO Tom Falcone, is that PSEG's failure to address Tropical Storm Isaias was a failure of corporate management by PSEG. While this is no doubt true, LIPA's position seems to absolve LIPA of all responsibility over the disaster that befell Long Island in August, placing all the blame on PSEG. LIPA acts like the failures by PSEG came out of nowhere, and no one could have anticipated what would have happened. This, of course, is all too convenient for LIPA, as they knew or should have known that the current regulatory apparatus governing our power distribution and oversight on Long Island was woefully inadequate. The reason LIPA knew or should have known about this is because they were put on notice in 2015. That year, the Comptroller of New York released a report called Long Island Power Authority by the Numbers, a public authority in transition. I strongly encourage each and every member of DPS on this call to read the report, and I would kindly ask that the report be submitted into the record of today. In that report, Comptroller DiNapoli goes into perspicuous detail over the problems of regulation facing LIPA and PSEG, and the likelihood that if those problems are not addressed, we will find ourselves in a disastrous situation the next time a storm hits. What were those problems that Comptroller DiNapoli highlighted? The problems were from the deregulation that occurred after Superstorm Sandy, the deregulation that occurred under the LIPA Reform Act. According to the Comptroller's report, in June 2010, LIPA launched into a competitive procurement process for a new management services agreement. After an extensive selection process, LIPA entered into a 10-year, $3.9 billion utility services management agreement with PSEG Long Island to replace the previous agreement with National Grid. In 2012, the Office of the State Comptroller approved that operations service agreement between LIPA and PSEG. The contract, and this is a direct quote, included significant consumer protections, benchmarks, and requirements. Among other elements, the operations service agreement provided for the creation of a joint operating committee with representatives of LIPA and PSEG to provide oversight and control over major operating decisions. After a transition period during 2013, PSEG was to assume responsibility of the day-to-day operations of LIPA's transmission and distribution system in 2014. But around this time, Superstorm Sandy happened. The results, as we know, were catastrophic, not just for Long Islanders, not just for their property and their livelihoods, but for the future regulation over PSEG. For what followed after Superstorm Sandy was the LIPA Reform Act, which constituted a push to privatize LIPA's operations, taking the form of renegotiating the 2012 Operating Services Agreement into the amended 2013 Operating Services Agreement. This is a direct quote from the report. The LIPA Reform Act authorized the renegotiation and amendment of the Operating Services Agreement between LIPA and PSEG. The newly renegotiated Operating Services Agreement was much worse for Long Island than the previous agreement. Unlike the 2012 OSA, which had been reviewed by the Comptroller, the 2013 OSA afforded regulators limited oversight, subject only to review and written recommendations by the Department of Public Service and the adoption of a resolution by the LIPA board. Unlike the 2012 OSA, the 2013 OSA stripped the Comptroller of New York and the Public Service Commission of the power of oversight over LIPA and PSEG. Review and approval of the renegotiated contract by the Office of the State Comptroller was explicitly eliminated in the LIPA Reform Act. As a result, according to the Comptroller's report, many of the beneficial terms and protections built into the original competitively bid contract that had been reviewed and approved by the Office of the State Comptroller were modified or eliminated in the final amended Operating Services Agreement. The renegotiated Operating Services Agreement diminished key controls that were put in place under the 2012 OSA, including LIPA's oversight responsibilities, and gave more autonomy and authority to the service provider PSEG. This is a direct quote. It is unclear what, if any, day-to-day oversight of PSEG remains with LIPA. This was from 2015. Under the LIPA Reform Act, LIPA's oversight authority over PSEG with respect to operations services would be minimized, and the anticipated joint operating committee that was supposed to be formed under the 2012 agreement, along with its rights and responsibilities, would be completely eliminated. This was a critical change because the primary construct of the original operations service agreement had been that the majority of the costs of operations were to be paid as pass-through costs, making upfront control of such costs critical. That's a direct quote from the report. In the original Operations Services Agreement, the primary oversight and control for these costs would have occurred through review of the costs by the Joint Operating Committee and approval of an annual budget by the LIPA board. The requirements of the original Operations Services Agreement included, 1, pass-through costs as well as work plan status updates would be reviewed monthly by the Joint Operating Committee for reasonableness. That was eliminated. No more monthly reviews. PSEG would be required to provide monthly budget reports to LIPA showing annual results as compared to the budget, including explanations of variances and projected full-year results. That was the number 2 thing in the previous agreement that was eliminated. Number 3, LIPA would monitor for early warnings of cost overruns or schedule delays. That was eliminated. Number 4, PSEG was required to develop specific action plans to address any projected overruns. That was also eliminated. All these oversight controls had been eliminated in the 2013 OSA. And because of these oversight provisions and cost controls were eliminated, this is a direct quote from the 2015 report. It is unclear what mechanisms, if any, have been instituted to control costs, all of which will ultimately be borne by the ratepayers. The amended OSA required PSEG to submit operating and capital budgets, and this is back in 2015, so it's still the same today, for 2014 and 2015 to LIPA for review and approval. For contract years 2016, 2017, 2018, and onward, however, PSEG is just required to consult with LIPA in preparing the budgets, but is not required to obtain agreement or approval from LIPA. For subsequent years, PSEG is again required to submit its budget to LIPA for review and approval, with any disagreements over modifications subject to dispute or subject to only dispute resolution. Is it any wonder why their budget is not effective and that their allocation of the public's resources are not prudently done?
Right.
So,
Mr. Mark Antonio.
Yes.
Thank you for that. It's very helpful. We're actually in a process right now of reviewing that OSA and potentially thinking about how it could be changed if PSEG is going to remain in a radical way. But I do have to ask you if you could wrap up.
Absolutely, sir. And I apologize.
We would appreciate it.
And
That's okay. And let me just say, if I am cutting you short, if you have more, or even if I don't, feel free to submit your testimony in writing as well, and we'd be happy to. I would be very happy to take a look of it, in detail.
I will, and I thank you. I just will conclude by saying this: that this is not an issue of whether or not PSEG has great people working there, great management, very kind-hearted, generous people. This is a question about the proper regulatory apparatus under which PSEG is to operate and to effectively do the public's business. And that apparatus was eliminated. And a starting point would be for this body to look at just returning to the regulatory regime that existed prior to the LIPA Reform Act. If we just did that and allowed the Comptroller of New York and Public Service Commission to have oversight once again over LIPA and PSEG, we'd be in a much better situation. I will submit written comments to this body. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I believe that concludes our list of speakers. Xenia,
yes,
has anyone got their hand raised?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. All right, Commissioner Berman, if you're still with us, do you want to give some closing comment, and then we will shut down the hearing.
Thank you so much. I thank everybody who spent the time giving us their comments and their thoughts today. I really do appreciate it, and a special thank you to the staff and to Special Counsel Landsman for the job they've done tonight. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us as you always do. Special thank you to the staff. These forums are not easy to manage behind the scenes and to put together, and really do appreciate your good work. So with that, Xenia or the court reporter, whoever does it, can you please formally close this form.
Okay, one moment. Okay, we're off the record.
All right. Thank you all very, very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
You too, everybody. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.